Warrior Lore. Chapter 11:20. Since they left the Emperor Wu's secret treasure, Feng Tianwu had been following by Duan Lingtian's side. This was something they were clearly aware of. It was precisely because of this that they betrayed Duan Lingtian, and it was equivalent to betraying Feng Tianwu as well. So when they looked at Feng Tianwu now, they felt that they were in the wrong and felt guilty in their hearts. Wu. In next to no time, Feng Wu Dao noticed Feng Tianwu as well, and he hurriedly flew over with a smile on his face. But the smile on his face quickly froze because he noticed that when Feng Tianwu looked at him, her gaze seemed to be cold, indifferent, and perplexed, and it was as if she was looking at a stranger. Kid Lingtian, what's going on? Feng Wu Dao noticed that something was amiss, and he looked at Duan Lingtian at the first possible moment as he asked, Uncle Feng, Tian Wu has lost her past memories. But don't worry, so long as you give me time, I'll be able to help Tian Wu recover her memories. Duan Lingtian spoke the truth and consoled at the same time. What? Lost her memories? Why is it like this? Feng Wu Dao's expression became extremely unsightly. You're my father? Feng Tianwu looked at Feng Wu Dao and asked in a slightly hesitant voice, and her tone was filled with restraint. It's me. I'm your father. Feng Wu Dao hurriedly replied, and at the same time, he looked at Duan Lingtian with a gloomy expression. Kid Lingtian, what exactly is going on? Why would Wu lose her memories for no reason or rhyme? Uncle Feng, this is a long story. Even though it was a long story, Duan Lingtian still patiently explained the sequence of events to Feng Wu Dao, and he didn't hold back too much. I didn't protect Tian Wu properly. After he finished speaking, Duan Lingtian sighed with a guilty expression. In this way, the fire spirit body in Wu's body is gone? It's no longer a threat to her? What Feng Wu Dao was most concerned about was this. His daughter's fire spirit body had always given him a headache, and now that he heard his daughter no longer possessed the fire spirit body, he couldn't help but heave a long sigh of relief. It was as if the heavy burden that had been on his shoulders for many years had been completely removed. Yes, Duan Lingtian nodded. Wu can be considered to have profited from a disaster. You're not to blame for this matter. A rare smile appeared on Feng Wu Dao's face. As for Wu's memories, I believe you will have a way to help her recover them sooner or later. Uncle Feng, don't worry. I will definitely help Tianwu regain her memory. Duan Lingtian said with a serious expression. However, how did the martial monarch powerhouses from the three great second-rate forces know that you're in the Dark Han dynasty? How did he know you were in the Crimson Sky Kingdom? Feng Wu Dao felt that this was strange. For this, I will have to properly thank these people from the Blade Sect. Duan Lingtian said with a cold smile as he looked at the group of Blade Sect's senior officials, including Saber 5, Sword 13, the sect leader of Saber Sect, and the sect leader of Sword Sect. When they heard Duan Lingtian say that he managed to escape from the three martial monarch powerhouses, the Blade Sect's senior officials had an expression of disbelief on their faces. In their opinion, this was something impossible. At that time, they had told the martial monarch powerhouses from the three great second-rate forces about Duan Lingtian's background because they were prepared to kill Duan Lingtian. This time, they were shocked when they saw Duan Lingtian again. However, they thought Duan Lingtian was not in the Dark Han dynasty at that time, and was not found by the martial monarch powerhouses from the three great second-rate forces. That was why he managed to escape by luck. However, when they heard what Duan Lingtian said to Feng Wu Dao earlier, they finally realized something. Warrior Lore. Duan Lingtian and Feng Tianwu managed to escape by luck from the martial monarch powerhouses from the three great second-rate forces. Of course, they did not know how Duan Lingtian and Feng Wu Dao managed to escape. Duan Lingtian only mentioned the most important part casually. He only said that he and Feng Tianwu managed to escape the danger, but they had to pay a huge price for it. Feng Tianwu, in particular, had lost her memory because of this. Duan Lingtian, our Blade Sect is indeed in the wrong in this matter. We can't deny this. The sect leader of Saber Sect sighed and said apologetically, however, if we don't cooperate with the martial monarch powerhouses from the three great second-rate forces, I'm afraid our Blade Sect will be wiped out. We don't have a choice. That's right, we don't have a choice. At once, many of the Blade Sect's senior officials chimed in. We don't have a choice? The sneer on the corner of Duan Lingtian's mouth deepened as he glanced at the sect leader of Saber Sect, the sect leader of Sword Sect, Saber 5, and Jian Shisan. I think all of you are afraid of death, right? The moment Duan Lingtian's words left his mouth, the sect leader of Saber Sect and the sect leader of Sword Sect's faces changed. Saber 5 and Jian Shisan, on the other hand, had a guilty and bitter smile on their faces. Duan Lingtian, don't think that you're really strong just because you're lucky to have escaped from the three great second-rate forces. This is the Blade Sect, not a place where you can act presumptuously. The sect leader of Sword Sect shouted angrily. Not a place where I can act presumptuously? I really can't see that. Duan Lingtian said in disdain. You're courting death. The sect leader of Sword Sect had a bad temper to begin with. Now that he was enraged by Duan Lingtian, he could no longer hold it in. The origin energy on his body surged as the 9th level advanced sword concept and another 9th level advanced concept followed like shadows. Whoosh! In an instant, the sect leader of Sword Sect seemed to have transformed into a gigantic sword as he slashed down at Duan Lingtian. It was as though he was going to cut Duan Lingtian in half. Sect leader, please have mercy. Jian Shisan's face changed drastically. He wanted to save Duan Lingtian, but it was too late. Idiot! Duan Lingtian spat out 2 words slowly. He raised his hand and casually punched out to meet the sect leader of Sword Sect's attack. Boom! In an instant, a 5-colored energy burst out from Duan Lingtian's fist. It was his fused profundity. When the fused profundity surged out and clashed with the sect leader of Sword Sect's gigantic sword, it was like a giant beast opening its bloody mouth and swallowing the gigantic sword. The rolling fused profundity instantly drowned the gigantic sword that the sect leader of Sword Sect had transformed into, leaving no trace behind. Whoosh! All of a sudden, the fused profundity that was charging out violently trembled and disappeared before everyone's eyes. Duan Lingtian had put it away and was now able to control it freely. Silence. The scene was dead silent. Only the heavy breathing of the Blade Sect's higher-ups could be heard. Their Blade Sect's sect leader of Sword Sect was killed just like that? If they had not seen it with their own eyes, they would not have believed it at all. You've broken through to the martial monarch stage? Very soon, the sect leader of Sword Sect regained his senses. He pointed at Duan Lingtian with a trembling hand and asked in fear, You want to try too? Duan Lingtian, who had killed the sect leader of Sword Sect with a single punch, licked his dry lips and looked at the sect leader of Sword Sect with interest. When the sect leader of Sword Sect heard this, he immediately shut his mouth, not daring to say another word. At this moment, whether it was Feng Wu Dao, Jian Shisan, or Saber 5, all of them were looking at Duan Lingtian in disbelief. They did not expect Duan Lingtian's current strength to be so terrifying. He had killed the sect leader of Sword Sect, who was at the peak of the Void Realm, with a single punch. Since the Blade Sect is so heartless and unjust, there's no need for me to continue staying here. Feng Wu Dao, whose face was filled with anger, said coldly as he announced his departure from the Blade Sect. I used to be a disciple of the Blade Sect? Feng Tianwu muttered to herself before she said, Then, from this moment onward, I have nothing to do with the Blade Sect anymore. Feng Wu Dao and his daughter announced their departure from the Blade Sect one after another. Senior, I'll remember your kindness in the past. Today, I won't make things difficult for the Blade Sect for your sake. However, since the kindness and enmity have been offset, we don't owe each other anything anymore. Duan Lingtian looked at Jian Shisan with a calm and indifferent voice. To be honest, when he found out it was the Blade Sect who had told the 3 great second-rate forces about his origin, he was really disappointed. Of course, what made him feel the most disappointed was Jian Shisan's attitude. Among the Blade Sect's higher-ups, other than Feng Wu Dao who had joined the Blade Sect later on, he only acknowledged Jian Shisan because Jian Shisan had saved his life twice. A drop of water should be repaid with a gushing spring, let alone a life-saving grace. However, he only wanted to cut ties with Jian Shisan now. Sigh. Jian Shisan opened his mouth as though he wanted to say something. However, in the end, he did not say anything and only sighed. Duan Lingtian, you've misunderstood my master. At this moment, a voice resonated in the air, accompanied by the appearance of a figure. The person who had arrived was a young man who was no stranger to Duan Lingtian. It was Su Li. Misunderstood? Duan Lingtian frowned. A puzzled expression could be seen on his face. Su Li nodded and explained, actually, from the beginning to the end, Master didn't want to reveal your origin because he didn't want to harm you. However, our Swords Gate sect leader knew about your origin long ago. He ignored Master's persuasion and revealed your origin. Therefore, from the beginning until the end, Master didn't have any say in this matter, and he didn't betray you. Su Li finished speaking in one breath. I'm sorry, Senior. After Su Li finished speaking, Duan Lingtian pondered for a moment before he glanced at Jian Shursan apologetically. I'll repay Senior's kindness to me in the future. However, the prerequisite is that Senior doesn't continue to stay in this cold and indifferent blade sect. I believe the Sword sect leader isn't the only one who made this decision. When Duan Lingtian reached this point, he began to scrutinize the Sword sect leader who seemed to have a guilty conscience and the group of Blade Sect's high-ranking officials, including Saber 5. Although the group of Blade Sect's high-ranking officials were displeased when they were scrutinized by Duan Lingtian, none of them dared to show it. What a joke. Didn't they see how Duan Lingtian killed their Sword sect leader, who was at the peak of the void, with just one punch? Even if they attacked together, they would only be sending themselves to their deaths. Su Li, this cold and indifferent blade sect might betray you and your family at any time in the future. You, come with me. Duan Lingtian looked at Su Li. Trust me. If you come with me, you'll have a brighter future. Duan Lingtian. Su Li shook his head. If Master also wanted to betray you, I'd definitely leave with you now. However, Master didn't betray you, and he didn't disappoint me. Not for anything else, but for the kindness Master has shown me all these years, I still choose to stay. Chapter 11:21. I respect your choice. Senior, if you manage to leave Blade Sect with Su Li one day, I'll give all of you a great fortune that you can't even imagine. Duan Lingtian nodded solemnly at Su Li. When he reached the end of his sentence, he looked at Sword 13 and said solemnly, Uncle Feng, Tian Wu, let's go. Then, Duan Lingtian called out to Feng Wu Dao and Feng Tianwu before they left the sky above the Blade Sect's estate together. After Duan Lingtian and the other two left, the atmosphere in the sky above the Blade Sect's estate became slightly oppressive. After a long time, Sect Leader, I've thought about it for a while and decided to leave in the end. Sword 13 looked at the Sect Leader of Blade Sect and bowed. From today onward, Sword 13 no longer exists in this world. Su Li, let's go. After he finished speaking, he flew away. Su Li followed closely behind. From the beginning until the end, he did not say a word and followed his master's lead. Su Li and his disciple left the Blade Sect. However, they did not chase after Duan Lingtian and the other two. Instead, they left in a different direction from Duan Lingtian and the other two. Duan Lingtian and the other two headed south. They, on the other hand, were heading north. The reason Su Li's master chose to leave was not because of the great fortune that Duan Lingtian had promised him. It was because he followed his heart. After the three figures left the Blade Sect, they headed south and soon entered the 10 Great Dynasties area and entered the Dark Han Dynasty. Wu's cultivation base has also broken through to the martial monarch stage. The red-robed middle-aged man among the three looked at the red-clad girl next to him in shock. His eyes were filled with disbelief. In his opinion, this was just too unbelievable. How old was his daughter? A martial monarch powerhouse? Even he, who had a good innate talent and comprehension ability, had only barely broken through to the 8th level void transformation and comprehended the 9th level advanced sword concept. Uncle Feng, although I still have a sword profundity fragment with me, I've already comprehended it. I'll bring you to a place where you can directly comprehend the sword profundity, Duan Lingtian said to Feng Wu Dao. The 3rd level monarch stage sword profundity fragment in his hand that came from the sword monarch's treasure had helped him comprehend the sword profundity in one fell swoop. It was useless for anyone else to take it away. It was like a glass of water. Duan Lingtian drank half a cup, so there was only half a cup left. Others would need to drink a cup of water to completely quench their thirst. Even if they had the remaining half cup of water from Duan Lingtian, it would be useless. Oh. Hearing Duan Lingtian mention such a magical place, Feng Wu Dao's interest was immediately piqued. The place that Duan Lingtian was talking about was naturally the canyon with the word sword in the depths of the mountains where Xiong Quan's hometown was located. There was a self-proclaimed sword saint named Feng Qingyang who left behind his sword insights. It just so happened that Feng Wu Dao had comprehended sword concept as well, and he'd comprehended sword concept to the 9th level advanced stage. Seeing the word sword for the first time will bring great benefits. It's very easy for Uncle Feng to comprehend the sword profundity. This was something that Duan Lingtian was certain of. Just like Xiong Quan, it was also because of the first time he saw the word sword that he was able to comprehend the advanced sword concept in one fell swoop. When he saw the word sword for the first time, his sword concept had leaped from the 9th level intermediate stage to the 5th level advanced stage in one fell swoop. It was a great improvement. Feng Tianwu's improvement was even more exaggerated. Comprehending the method of creating a sword from fire would allow one to directly create a sword concept and sword profundity of the same level through fire concept and fire profundity. Therefore, Duan Lingtian was 100% sure that Feng Wu Dao was no exception. Duan Lingtian and Feng Tianwu could be considered to be revisiting an old haunt when they arrived at the remote mountain range again. The gorge was still the same as before, and it was very quiet. When Duan Lingtian and Feng Tianwu entered the gorge, they weren't attracted by the word sword on the mountain wall, but Feng Wu Dao was as expected. I've been here before? Feng Tianwu asked Duan Lingtian.
Yes.
Duan Lingtian nodded, and then he said with a smile, the reason you're able to create the sword profundity with fire concept is because you've seen the word sword. Feng Tianwu looked at the word sword when she heard this, and she said with a puzzled expression, I feel that it seems to contain many obscure and difficult to understand information. But why would I? Why would he be like that? Feng Tianwu looked at Feng Wu Dao who was stunned and asked curiously. She originally wanted to say my father, but she didn't say it in the end. Duan Lingtian heard Feng Tianwu's timely change of words, but he didn't mind it. Everything required time, and Tianwu similarly needed time to accept this father. It's his first time here. At that time, it was similar to when we first came here. Duan Lingtian smiled as he recalled the scene when Xiong Quan brought him here for the first time. He still remembered. At that time, Xiong Quan's time of concentration was the shortest, followed by Feng Tianwu, and then him. His time of concentration was the longest. I wonder how long Uncle Feng will be able to maintain this concentration. Duan Lingtian glanced at Feng Wu Dao and guessed in his heart, but he couldn't figure it out. Let's wait for Uncle Feng to wake up first. Tianwu, we've more or less comprehended and consumed some of the sword Dao comprehensions we absorbed and stored from the word sword. We're about to leave the outer land, so we can absorb as much as possible and store it so that we can slowly comprehend it in the future. Duan Lingtian said to Feng Tianwu. Feng Tianwu nodded. Then, under Duan Lingtian's guidance, she began to absorb the sword Dao comprehensions in the word sword. The obscure information was stored in her mind one by one. Time passed by quietly. After spending 10 days, Duan Lingtian felt he could no longer absorb the sword Dao comprehensions contained in the word sword. For this reason, he did not continue. However, to Duan Lingtian's surprise, Tianwu was still absorbing the information. It seems like Tianwu has comprehended and consumed a lot of the sword Dao comprehensions contained in the word sword in her mind when she improved her sword profundity. Duan Lingtian thought to himself. It was precisely because of this that Tianwu needed to absorb more. After shaking his head, Duan Lingtian sat cross-legged at a low altitude and began to cultivate. 9 dragons wore sovereign technique, divine dragon form. While he was cultivating, Duan Lingtian did not forget to pay attention to his surroundings. His spiritual energy was constantly extended as he remained vigilant of his surroundings. He did not miss a single corner. Unknowingly, Feng Tianwu had also stopped absorbing and storing the sword Dao comprehensions contained in the word sword. When she woke up and saw Duan Lingtian cultivating, she did not disturb Duan Lingtian. Instead, she sat cross-legged at a low altitude and continued to cultivate. After an unknown period of time, Duan Lingtian felt a fierce aura surging towards him. He was instantly jolted awake. Uncle Feng, have you comprehended the sword profundity? After being jolted awake, Duan Lingtian looked at Feng Wu Dao immediately. He could feel the fierce aura that extended from Feng Wu Dao's body earlier was the aura of the sword profundity. I just woke up as well. I feel like there's a change. Feng Wu Dao had just woken up, and there was still a hint of confusion on his face. Give it a try. Duan Lingtian smiled. All right. Feng Wu Dao nodded. With a raise of his hand, his origin energy condensed into a sword before it flashed out. In an instant, a fierce sword energy flashed and emitted a wave of terrifying aura. Everywhere it passed, the airflow in the air flashed and set off a wave of slight air explosions. As the air explosions resounded, airwaves flashed and a wave of violent wind spread out and raged through the entire gorge. Unknowingly, Feng Tianwu, who was cultivating cross-legged at a low altitude, was jolted awake. She just happened to see the scene of Feng Wu Dao testing the sword profundity. Whoosh! As Feng Wu Dao's sword flashed out, the heaven and earth phenomenon that corresponded to his cultivation base first appeared in the sky above his head. After that, the heaven and earth phenomenon that corresponded to the sword profundity began to flash. 3,000 silhouettes of ancient horned dragons. The sword profundity was comparable to the strength of 3,000 ancient horned dragons. Second-level monarch stage sword profundity. Duan Lingtian's eyes lit up, and he hurriedly congratulated Feng Wu Dao. Congratulations, Uncle Feng. Second-level monarch stage sword profundity? Until now, Feng Wu Dao still had not returned to his senses. He recalled his earlier experience. He had only taken a glance at the word sword on the mountain wall, and his mind was subconsciously immersed in it. It seemed like a long time had passed before he finally regained his senses. As soon as he regained his senses, his 9th-level advanced sword concept transformed into the 2nd-level monarch stage sword profundity. It skipped the 1st-level monarch stage sword profundity and skipped an entire level. Unbelievable! Unbelievable! Feng Wu Dao's face was filled with shock as he took a deep breath. What exactly is that word, sword? Why is it so magical? Feng Wu Dao was shocked for a long time before he finally calmed down and asked curiously. It was left behind by a guy who called himself the Sword Saint. Uncle Feng, you can go there and have a look. There's a paragraph of words left behind by the person who left the word sword. Duan Lingtian instructed Feng Wu Dao to look at the message left behind by the Sword Saint, Feng Qingyang. After Feng Wu Dao read it, he could not help but feel shocked. He felt like a mysterious door was slowly opening before him. He wanted to enter it, but he was still far from it. Originally, Duan Lingtian planned to let Feng Wu Dao absorb and store the sword Dao comprehension contained in the word sword before heading to the inner land with him and Tian Wu. However, Feng Wu Dao rejected it. With my current strength, I won't be of any help even if I follow you. Instead, I'll be a burden. I won't go with you. This place is not bad. I want to stay here and study the word sword, Feng Wu Dao said. In the beginning, Duan Lingtian tried to persuade Feng Wu Dao. However, Feng Wu Dao remained unmoved. Duan Lingtian could only respect his decision. Since that's the case, I'll introduce someone to you, Uncle Feng. While respecting Feng Wu Dao's decision, Duan Lingtian made a trip to Xiong village and brought Heir Hu over to introduce him to Feng Wu Dao. After everything was ready, Duan Lingtian and Feng Tianwu left the gorge together. They left the Darkhan dynasty and headed north. Now, a few months have passed. I think Xiong Quan should have made a breakthrough. Chapter 11:22. After leaving the Darkhan dynasty, Duan Lingtian and Feng Tianwu returned to the northern mountain land in the Lu clan. He hasn't made a breakthrough yet? When they returned to their own residence, Duan Lingtian extended his spiritual energy into Xiong Quan's room and immediately probed Xiong Quan's condition. Xiong Quan was currently at the final juncture of breaking through to the martial monarch stage. With the help of the spirit fruit's medicinal efficacy, Xiong Quan should be able to complete the breakthrough in a few days at most. Duan Lingtian thought to himself. Duan Lingtian realized he still had to wait for a few more days. He could not help but look at Feng Tianwu. Tianwu, go back to your room and rest for a few days. We'll depart after Xiong Quan has made a breakthrough. Okay. Feng Tianwu nodded obediently. She flew down and landed in her room. When she faced the group of maids in the residence, her face was covered with a layer of frost. She emitted a cold aura that kept people at bay for thousands of miles. Miss Tianwu. However, when the group of maids greeted her respectfully, they did not find it strange at all. After Tianwu returned to her room, Duan Lingtian went to look for the clan leader of Lu clan, Lu Rue, and told him he was leaving. Elder Duan, why you're leaving? Although Lu Rue had long guessed that Duan Lingtian would leave sooner or later, and it was impossible for him to stay in a small place like the Lu clan forever, he did not expect this day to come so soon. He was at a loss for what to do. Yes. Duan Lingtian nodded before he said solemnly, Clan leader, I'm indebted to you, the former clan leader, and the elders for taking care of me during my time in the Lu clan. I'll stay for a few more days. During these few days, I'll refine some grade 1 pills and grade 1 spirit weapons for the clan. You're too kind, Elder Duan. Lu Rue quickly replied politely when he heard the first half of Duan Lingtian's sentence. However, his eyes lit up when he heard the second half of Duan Lingtian's sentence. At the same time, he looked at Duan Lingtian in anticipation. Elder Duan, can I continue to watch while you refine the pills? Of course. Duan Lingtian nodded and said at the same time, call those grade 2 alchemist masters and elders as well. If my medicine refinement process can benefit all of you, consider it as my gift to the clan before I leave. Thank you, Elder Duan. I'll go prepare the medicinal herbs and refining materials now. Lu left with an excited expression on his face. Duan Lingtian sat in the main hall and waited quietly. Of course, while he was waiting, he did not stay idle, and 3 nature concept fragments appeared in his hand. He comprehended the fused profundity, while he comprehended the sword Tao that originated from the word sword in his mind. Origin energy rumbled in his body as it circulated according to the mental cultivation method of the 9th form of the 9 Dragons War Sovereign technique, the Divine Dragon form. The medicinal efficacy of the rebirth pill followed him like a shadow. In the past few months, Duan Lingtian did not deliberately cultivate, so he did not break through the bottleneck to the 2nd level martial monarch stage. Boom, boom, boom. Currently, the bottleneck that was hit by the origin energy from the rebirth pill was on the verge of collapsing. If I continue to cultivate like this, it won't take long for me to break through to the 2nd level martial monarch stage. Duan Lingtian was confident about this. However, it was obviously impossible for him to continue cultivating like this. This was because Lu Rue soon returned with a pile of materials. A few of the Lu clan's grade 2 alchemist masters returned with him. After Lu Rue and the few grade 2 alchemist masters greeted Duan Lingtian began to refine the pills. Qi. The dark golden pill fire flickered and merged with the quasi-royal grade spirit weapon cauldron. It merged perfectly with the pile of materials. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. At the same time, Duan Lingtian's hands moved rapidly. Lu Rue and the others were mesmerized by his mysterious refining technique. For a day and a night, Duan Lingtian did not rest at all. He refined the pills seriously. This was the gift he had left for the Lu clan before he left. He had put a lot of effort into refining them. Other than the astounding success rate of 100%, the purity of each of the grade 1 pills was infinitely close to the perfect 99%. After a day and a night, Duan Lingtian stopped refining. Seeing that Lu Rue and the others had no intention of returning to their senses, Duan Lingtian left the pills and returned to the mansion he used to live in. After he returned, he refined a few grade 1 spirit weapons with the materials Lu Rue gave him. After Xiong Quan had broken through to the martial monarch stage, he passed the grade 1 spirit weapons to Lu Rue. At this time, 5 days had passed. Whoosh! The origin energy in Lu Rue's hand rolled and merged with the spirit weapons in his hand. A more powerful and terrifying energy surged and emitted waves of terrifying aura. The heaven and earth energy stirred above his head, and the heaven and earth phenomenon flashed. First, 2,000 silhouettes of ancient horned dragons appeared. Then, 1,800 silhouettes of ancient horned dragons appeared. They were so lifelike that it was visually stunning. S increased by 90%? Lu Rue narrowed his eyes. Shock and disbelief were written all over his face. In fact, an ordinary grade 1 spirit weapon would be considered good if it could increase by 88%. However, the one in his hand could increase by 90%. It could be considered as the best of the best. Elder Duan, the other grade 1 spirit weapons. After a while, Lu Rue regained his senses and looked at the purple-clad young man who was the leader of the trio. It's the same for the other grade 1 spirit weapons as well. They provide a 90% boost. The purple-clad young man interrupted Lu Rue before he could finish his sentence. The purple-clad young man was none other than Duan Lingtian. As for the two people next to him, they were Feng Tianwu and Xiong Quan. Clan leader, please send my regards to the former clan leader and the 3 guardian elders. It's time for us to leave. Before Lu Rue regained his senses, Duan Lingtian greeted him and turned around to leave. Feng Tianwu and Xiong Quan followed closely behind him. Elder Duan. When Lu Rue regained his senses, he realized that Duan Lingtian and the other two had already disappeared from his sight. He could not help but shake his head and sigh. I wonder if I'll be able to see Elder Duan again in the future. Lu Rue sighed. I only hope that when Elder Duan becomes the Emperor Wu powerhouse and stands at the peak of Cloud Continent again, he'll still remember the Lu clan in the northern mountain land. Lu Rue prayed in his heart. After Duan Lingtian and the other two left the Lu clan, they headed north. Their destination was the Ruo Shui riverside. If they wanted to cross the Ruo Shui River, they would first have to arrive at the riverside. Then, they would have to take the swift boat from there and cross the Ruo Shui River to reach the inner land. Although it was not impossible for Duan Lingtian, Feng Tianwu, and Xiong Quan to cross the Ruo Shui River with their bodies with their strength, it was still risky. It's fine if I encounter the whirlpool in the Ruo Shui River, but Tianwu and Xiong Quan will be in danger. At that time, I'll only be able to save one of them at most. Due to this reason, Duan Lingtian decided to take the swift boat to the inner land, even though the cost of the swift boat was extremely high. During the journey, Duan Lingtian did not stay idle. He introduced the Ruo Shui River to Feng Tianwu and Xiong Quan. That Ruo Shui River, even a martial monarch would die if they were swallowed by it. Xiong Quan's eyes widened when he heard how terrifying the Ruo Shui River was. His face was filled with shock. It was hard for him to imagine. It was just a river, but it was so terrifying today. What? Do you still want to give it a try? Duan Lingtian asked with a smile. Xiong Quan immediately shook his head when he heard this. He did not want to throw his life away. Naturally, he believed Duan Lingtian's words without a doubt. The reason he questioned him earlier was because he found it unbelievable and hard to imagine. Feng Tianwu's expression did not change when she heard how terrifying the Ruo Shui River was. However, fear could be seen in the depth of her beautiful eyes. As time passed by, Duan Lingtian and the other two could see the horizon in the distance. Young master, is that the Ruo Shui River? Xiong Quan asked curiously as he stared at the sea level that stretched as far as the eye could see.
Yes.
Duan Lingtian nodded. However, his expression was tense as though he was distracted by something else. Soon after, a vast river that stretched as far as the eye could see appeared before Duan Lingtian and the other two's eyes. It was extremely quiet, and there were no splashes at all. It was like a pool of stagnant water. Whoosh! Suddenly, Duan Lingtian, who was flying forward, trembled violently. He came to a halt in the air, and his expression turned extremely solemn. Huh! Feng Tianwu also stopped when she saw Duan Lingtian coming to a halt all of a sudden. Xiong Quan, who had flown past them, immediately turned to look at Duan Lingtian and asked in confusion, "Young master, what's wrong?" However, Duan Lingtian did not pay any attention to Xiong Quan. He closed his eyes and stood there quietly. 15 minutes later, boom! Duan Lingtian's body trembled violently, and the purple robe on his body fluttered. At this moment, the origin energy in Duan Lingtian's body that had fused with the rebirth pill's medicinal efficacy finally broke through the bottleneck to the second-level martial monarch stage and flew past it. The origin energy that had broken through the bottleneck underwent an earth-shattering transformation in the blink of an eye. Second level martial monarch stage. Right now, Duan Lingtian had broken through to the second level martial monarch stage in one fell swoop. His strength had increased tremendously, and it had increased by a total of 1,000 ancient horn dragon strength. Coupled with the boost from the quasi-royal grade spirit sword, it had increased by a total of 2,000 ancient horn dragon strength. Right now, I should be invincible under the 7th level martial monarch stage. At the same time, Duan Lingtian opened his eyes. A bright light flashed in his eyes like two dazzling stars twinkling in the night sky. Let's go. When Duan Lingtian returned to his senses, he saw Xiong Quan, who was looking at him worriedly, and Feng Tianwu, who was looking at him thoughtfully. He smiled and greeted them. The three of them immediately continued to head to the Ruoshui riverside. They could vaguely see many people waiting there in the distance. Brother, are the three of you here to take the swift boat? Our Yin-Yang sect's swift boat will only cost 20 upper-grade origin stones per person if you want to buy a boarding pass now. Chapter 11:23. Anyone with a discerning eye would be able to tell that Duan Lingtian was the leader of the trio with just a glance at Duan Lingtian. Therefore, this middle-aged man who claimed to be selling boarding tokens with 3 exquisite tokens in his hand took a fancy to him immediately and tried to sell him the boarding token. Boarding token? Duan Lingtian raised his eyebrows and glanced at the token in the middle-aged man's hand nonchalantly before asking, I can board the Yin-Yang sect's swift boat with this? That's right. When the middle-aged man heard Duan Lingtian's words, he nodded happily as though he could already see a big fish about to take the bait. I heard that. One person has to pay 30 high-grade origin stones to board the Yin-Yang sect's swift boat from the Ruoshui River to the Innerland. Why is it only 20 high-grade origin stones for one person when it's yours? Duan Lingtian looked at the middle-aged man with interest and asked, It's pre-sold now, so it's cheaper. The middle-aged man's smile did not change as he said unhurriedly, Buying now is cheaper than buying when the swift boat arrives. One person can save 10 high-grade origin stones. I only have 3 left in my hand now, and it just so happens that there are 3 of you. If you miss this opportunity, you won't get this opportunity again. The middle-aged man reminded as he reached the end of his sentence. They're all buying? Duan Lingtian looked at the group of people nearby and asked curiously, Of course. The middle-aged man nodded immediately. Brother, he's not selling any boarding token at all. He's specifically here to cheat high-grade origin stones. Don't believe him. Right at this moment, a voice transmission entered into Duan Lingtian's ears. Duan Lingtian lifted his head immediately and saw a middle-aged man with a simple and honest appearance nodding at him. Then, he hurriedly turned his head away. It was as though he was worried about something. At this moment, Duan Lingtian had an idea in his heart. So, have you thought about it? The middle-aged man looked at Duan Lingtian and asked with a smile. In his opinion, if there were no accidents, this deal would definitely work. How many upper-grade primordial stones can you cheat in a day? Duan Lingtian looked at the middle-aged man and asked calmly. The middle-aged man never thought that after waiting for such a long time, he would receive such a sentence. His expression instantly changed and became extremely unsightly. Boom. At this moment, a loud sound rang out, attracting Duan Lingtian's attention. Duan Lingtian's face sank completely. What did he see? Just now, the honest middle-aged man who had kindly warned him was killed by a middle-aged man in gray with a single palm strike. The rolling power drowned the honest middle-aged man. In the next moment, the middle-aged man's corpse fell to the ground. Mind your own business, the gray-clad middle-aged man said coldly. At the same time, he seemed to have transformed into a bolt of lightning as he flashed towards the honest middle-aged man's corpse and took his spatial ring. In the next moment, he moved again and landed steadily beside the middle-aged man in front of Duan Lingtian. Boy, you'd better not learn from him. The gray-clad middle-aged man looked at Duan Lingtian. His cold eyes flashed, revealing a terrifying killing intent. When the honest middle-aged man was killed, Duan Lingtian noticed that there were only a few people in the crowd. Although there were many people present, only a few of them turned around to take a look. Subsequently, all of them turned their heads back one by one and ignored it. It was as though they had never seen it. Since it was none of their business, they ignored it. At this moment, the coldness of people's hearts could be seen clearly. Of course, Duan Lingtian also knew that most of these people did not want to get into trouble. He can be considered as my benefactor. Duan Lingtian withdrew his gaze and looked at the gray-clad middle-aged man as he said calmly. At this moment, Duan Lingtian also realized that the two people in front of him were in cahoots. Benefactor? The gray-clad middle-aged man smiled brightly and evilly. Do you know how many nosy idiots die here every day? Benefactor. I advise you to be like them and wait for the Yin-Yang sect's swift boat to arrive. The them he was referring to was the group of people waiting for the swift boat. As for the other things, just pretend you didn't see anything. After he finished speaking, the gray-clad middle-aged man glanced at Duan Lingtian in disdain. At the same time, he looked at the middle-aged man beside him who was trying to sell the boarding order to Duan Lingtian. What bad luck. Let's wait for the next target. All right. The latter nodded and glanced at Duan Lingtian and the other two coldly before flying away to wait for the next target. As for the gray-clad middle-aged man, he turned around and prepared to return to the crowd to continue monitoring the people who dared to ruin his companion's plans. He would kill whoever dared to ruin his companion's plans. Humph. At this moment, a cold snort resonated in the air. Accompanying this cold snort was the sound of a sword whistling in the air. As soon as the sword whistling sounded, it stopped abruptly. It was as though it had never appeared. However, there was a bloody hole at the back of the gray-clad middle-aged man's neck. It was a hideous bloody hole that kept spurting out blood. He was killed instantly. The moment the gray-clad middle-aged man's body fell from the sky, a ghostly purple figure appeared next to him. Whoosh! Duan Lingtian raised his hand and took off the gray-clad middle-aged man's spatial ring and put it away. You dare to kill him? At this moment, the middle-aged man who wanted to trick Duan Lingtian into buying a fake boarding order turned around and saw Duan Lingtian standing there while his companion's body fell from the sky. The first thought that popped into his mind was that this purple-clad young man before him had killed his companion. What? You want to avenge him? Duan Lingtian asked calmly as he lifted his head and looked at the middle-aged man with interest. The middle-aged man's face darkened when he heard this, but he did not dare to make a move. Although he and the gray-clad middle-aged man belonged to the same organization, the gray-clad middle-aged man was much more powerful than him. He had already entered the 7th-level void transformation stage. If he could even kill a 7th-level void transformation stage martial artist, why would he be afraid of a mere 6th-level void transformation stage martial artist? You're dead. The middle-aged man glared at Duan Lingtian and gritted his teeth. Do you know who we are? Do you know why they don't dare to offend us? The middle-aged man glanced at the group of people who had their backs facing him when he reached the end of his sentence. Naturally, many people turned around to watch the show. When they saw the gray-clad middle-aged man was killed by Duan Lingtian, all of them were shocked. Someone actually dares to kill a member of the gold-devouring organization. Many people were surprised. He even dares to kill a member of the gold-devouring organization. This young man is dead. Many people sighed. However, he's really strong. That person from the gold-devouring organization was a 7th-level void transformation stage martial artist, but he was killed by him. So what if he's killed? He won't be able to escape death when the powerhouses from the gold-devouring organization arrive. That's right. The leader of the gold-devouring organization is at the martial monarch stage. He even has 10 great guardians under him. All of them are powerhouses at the peak of the void stage. I'm afraid this young man is going to be in trouble. At this moment, many people looked at Duan Lingtian with pity in their eyes. They did not think Duan Lingtian would have a good ending. Gold-devouring organization? Martial monarch? Duan Lingtian clearly heard the words of the surrounding people, but he did not take them seriously at all. He was not afraid of anyone as long as they were not at the 7th-level martial monarch stage or above. Even if it was a 6th-level martial monarch stage powerhouse, he was confident he could kill him in one hit. This was Duan Lingtian's confidence. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. At this moment, Duan Lingtian heard the sound of wind whistling coming from all directions in the sky. It was the sound of figures hiding in the clouds. They're from the gold-devouring organization as well? Duan Lingtian began to speculate. Little brother, hurry up and run. At this moment, an old man's voice transmission entered Duan Lingtian's ears and advised him, you can't afford to offend the gold-devouring organization. Duan Lingtian raised his eyebrows. Soon, he noticed an old figure in the crowd. It was a kind-looking old man who reminded him out of kindness. Duan Lingtian extended his spiritual energy and instantly detected the old man's cultivation base. 9th level void transformation stage. He was much stronger than the gray-clad middle-aged man. Gold-devouring organization? With the previous example, Duan Lingtian did not dare to stare at the old man directly. He was afraid the old man would be in trouble because of him. However, he could not help but ask curiously, what organization is that? The Gold-Devouring Organization is an organization that specializes in cheating origin stones from martial artists at the Ruo Shui Riverside. They don't dare to kill martial artists who come here, but they'll use other methods to cheat origin stones from martial artists. The old man continued to speak through voice transmission. They don't dare to kill martial artists here? Duan Lingtian was stunned. Why? He had such a question in his heart since a long time ago. The gray-clad middle-aged man and the middle-aged man who intended to cheat him into buying a fake boarding token had extraordinary strength. Logically speaking, they could have killed many martial artists present and snatched more origin stones. However, they did not do that. Not only that, after they knew he had understood everything and could not deceive him anymore, they did not bother him anymore. They only killed the person who tipped him off. From the beginning until the end, they did not intend to touch him at all. Now that he heard the old man's words, Duan Lingtian finally realized that they did not dare to do that because they had their own concerns. As for what concerns, Duan Lingtian really wanted to know. Little brother, since you're able to come here, you should know that this is the place where the Yin-Yang sect's swift boat picks up people to head to the inner land, the old man said. Duan Lingtian nodded his head. The Yin-Yang sect's swift boat will come here every once in a while to pick up people who want to head to the inner land. Every person who boards the swift boat has to pay 30 high-grade origin stones. The old man continued to speak. This is the Yin-Yang sect's way of earning and collecting origin stones here. If the gold-devouring organization's people kill people here, it's no different from cutting off the Yin-Yang sect's source of income. Chapter 11:24. Upon hearing the old man's words, Duan Lingtian came to a realization. No wonder the other party did not dare to kill anyone to obtain more origin stones. It turned out that they were afraid of offending the Yin-Yang sect. It made sense when he thought about it. No matter what, the Yin-Yang sect was a first-rate force in the inner land. It would be easy for them to destroy the gold-devouring organization. However, once the Yin-Yang sect made their move, the gold-devouring organization would not be able to escape even if they wanted to. Little brother, it's better for you to leave now. Apart from the person you killed and the person who lied to you, there are still many people from the gold-devouring organization hiding in the dark. They must be informing the others now. The old man advised Duan Lingtian as he said, the gold-devouring organization's base is nearby. It won't be long before 1 or 2 of the 10 great guardians of the gold-devouring organization arrive. They're at the peak of the void after all. Thank you for the reminder. However, I still want to stay and join in the fun. Duan Lingtian smiled and did not take it to heart. Peak of the void? Join in the fun? Upon hearing Duan Lingtian's words, the old man's mouth twitched before he shook his head. It seemed like he had wasted his breath. However, he did not try to persuade Duan Lingtian anymore. He had done everything he could. The rest was not something he could control. Just like what the old man had said, it did not take long. About half an hour later, 3 swift sounds of wind whistling came from the distant sky. In just a blink of an eye, 3 people arrived at the Ruo Shui Riverside. These 3 old men were old, but they were spirited. It was obvious that their cultivation base was extraordinary. Greetings, guardians. When the 3 old men appeared, the middle-aged man who had failed to deceive Duan Lingtian with 3 exquisite tokens in his hand hurriedly bowed to them. His tone was filled with humility. 3 guardians. When the 3 old men appeared and the middle-aged man addressed them respectfully, Everyone's expression turned solemn. The gold-devouring organization only had a total of 10 guardians. Why did 3 of them suddenly appear? Those who had not turned around to join in the fun earlier also turned around one by one. They followed the gazes of the majority and looked at the 3 old men who had just arrived. Who killed the people from the gold-devouring organization? One of the old men asked in a deep voice. Guardian Lu, it's him. It's him. The middle-aged man immediately pointed at Duan Lingtian and roared hysterically. It's you who killed the people of the gold-devouring organization? The old man's sharp gaze fell on Duan Lingtian as he asked in a deep voice. Duan Lingtian glanced at the old man and ignored him. It was as if he had completely ignored him, let alone answered him. Guardian Lu, look at how arrogant he is. He actually dares to ignore you in front of you. The middle-aged man stood at the side and added fuel to the fire, hoping that the world would be in chaos. The old man's expression was extremely ugly, but he was not impulsive enough to directly attack Duan Lingtian. He continued to ask in a deep voice, Sir, what is your background? He's just a nobody. You don't have to worry. Duan Lingtian finally spoke. He had a casual expression on his face as he spoke in an unconcerned manner. A nobody? Hearing Duan Lingtian's words, the old man was stunned, but he did not believe Duan Lingtian's words. A nobody who dared to kill the people of the gold-devouring organization? A nobody who dared to ignore him? Sir, the gold-devouring organization is a consensual business. No matter who it is, as long as they're not willing, we won't force them. Don't you think you've crossed the line by killing our people? Another old man stared at Duan Lingtian and asked coldly, Consensual? Hearing the old man's words, Duan Lingtian laughed as though he had heard the funniest joke in the world. Isn't that the case? The last old man scoffed. His eyes gleamed coldly as he looked at Duan Lingtian as though he was about to devour him. If we don't consider the despicable actions of the gold-devouring organization, you're right. Duan Lingtian nodded and said meaningfully, If that's the case, why did you kill our people? Do you think the gold-devouring organization is a pushover? The old man asked in a deep voice. His voice was cold as though it came from an ice cave. When I killed him, I didn't know what the gold-devouring organization was at all. Are you satisfied with this answer? Duan Lingtian replied in a manner that was neither servile nor overbearing as he stared deeply at the old man. You're seeking death. Duan Lingtian's casual attitude completely enraged the 3 old men. After the 3 old men looked at each other, they shouted in unison. At the same time, the origin energy on their bodies skyrocketed. Their concepts followed like shadows as their bodies flashed. It was as though they had transformed into 3 swift lightning bolts that shot toward Duan Lingtian in a menacing manner. The moment the 3 of them made their move, they used all their strength to attack Duan Lingtian's vital points. It was obvious they wanted to kill Duan Lingtian in one hit. Duan Lingtian stood there quietly in the face of the 3 men's attacks. He did not make any move at all. His expression was still calm, and there was no sign of panic at all. Is he scared out of his wits? This was what most of the onlookers thought. Sigh. The old man who had warned Duan Lingtian earlier could not help but sigh when he saw the scene before his eyes. If this young man had listened to him and left this place, how would he have ended up in such a state? However, in the next moment, the old man's eyes narrowed abruptly as though he had seen something unbelievable. A hint of horror could be vaguely seen on his face. Oomph! A cold snort reverberated in the air like a clap of thunder. It shocked many of the onlookers, causing their blood to boil. Whoosh! At the same time, most of the onlookers only heard the sound of a sword whistling in the air. In the next moment, they saw a neat sword mark on the throats of the 3 old men who had charged toward the purple-clad young man in a menacing manner. It was as though they had been slashed by a sword. The 3 neat sword marks continued to expand as dazzling blood spurted out. The 3 old men's eyes finally dimmed as they lost control of their bodies and were sent flying by inertia. They continued to charge toward Duan Lingtian. Whoosh! At this moment, a ghostly figure appeared in front of Duan Lingtian, as though he could predict the future. Then, he raised the sword in his hand and waved it. Whoosh! 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 A series of deafening sword whistling sounds reverberated in the air. In the next moment, under the watchful eyes of the onlookers, the bodies of the three old men were enveloped by the crisscrossing sword radiance. It was as though they had been engulfed by a sword net and had nowhere to escape to. In the next moment, the three old men disappeared and only blood was left in the air. Boom! Right at this moment, at the same time that the 3-foot-long blade condensed from origin energy in the hand of the figure that appeared before Duanling Tian collapsed, he clenched his hand into a fist and smashed out a punch that descended into the air. Suddenly, a thunderous sound reverberated in the air as waves of invisible air waves surged out. The air waves swept out and set off gusts of wind, blowing away the blood that had splattered all over the sky. Not only did the blood not stain Duanling Tian's body, but it also did not stain the person standing in front of Duanling Tian. Silence. The scene was dead silent. At the same time, everyone's eyes landed on Duanling Tian. To be more precise, they were looking at the figure standing in front of Duanling Tian. From the moment this person made his move until now, he was as fast as lightning. He did not even have the time to stir the heaven and earth energy, let alone gather the heaven and earth phenomenon. 3 pieces of trash dare to attack my young master? You're seeking death. Judging by the voice, the person standing in front of Duanling Tian was none other than Xiong Quan. Apart from his cultivation base breaking through to the first-level martial monarch stage, Xiong Quan had also further comprehended the sword Dao and the word sword left behind by Sword Saint Feng Qingyang. Currently, he had already comprehended the third-level monarch stage sword profundity. With his strength, it was easy for him to kill 3 martial artists at the peak of the void who had not even broken through to the martial monarch stage. In fact, he had indeed done it. He had killed the 3 guardians of the gold-devouring organization in just one move. There were a total of 10 guardians in the gold-devouring organization. All of them were martial artists at the peak of the void. Naturally, these 3 people were no exception. From the moment he made his move until the moment he killed the 3 people, not only did Xiong Quan not mobilize the heaven and earth energy to gather the heaven and earth phenomenon, but even the 3 guardians of the gold-devouring organization did not have the time to mobilize the heaven and earth energy. Xiong Quan's speed was too fast. It was ridiculously fast. A martial monarch powerhouse. Soon after, some people reacted and exclaimed in surprise. At once, Xiong Quan became the center of attention. However, soon after, everyone's eyes landed on Duanling Tian without exception. This was because they recalled what Xiong Quan had said earlier. This martial monarch powerhouse addressed this purple-clad young man as young master. Oh my God! A martial monarch powerhouse as his follower. Who's this purple-clad young man? If I'm not mistaken, his background is definitely at the level of a first-rate force. Many people began to discuss among themselves. When they looked at Duanling Tian again, the way they looked at him was completely different. At this moment, Duanling Tian had become extremely mysterious in their eyes. As for Duanling Tian's previous actions, they no longer thought much of it. Run. The moment the middle-aged man who had deceived Duanling Tian and the other 2 people regained his senses, he did not dare to delay any longer. With a flash of his body, he quickly fled in a hurry. At this moment, he only hoped to leave this place as soon as possible. If that was the case, he might still be able to survive. However, would he be able to escape? The answer was no. Trying to escape? Whoosh! As Xiong Quan raised his hand, a consolidated sword ray swept past and pierced through the back of the middle-aged man who was fleeing. It easily killed him. Xiong Quan, you've actually comprehended the third-level sword profundity? This time, Duanling Tian could finally see the extraordinariness of the sword profundity that emanated from Xiong Quan's origin energy. He could not help but ask in surprise, "When did you comprehend it?" He. Upon hearing Duanling Tian's question, Xiong Quan chuckled. "I just comprehended it a while ago." While Duanling Tian and Xiong Quan were chatting, the way the people looked at Duanling Tian changed constantly. Most of them were curious about Duanling Tian's identity. The 3 guardians are dead. Return and report to the leader. There's a martial monarch powerhouse. Chapter 11:25. The gold-devouring organization's lair was located in the mountains not far from the Ruoshui riverside. Leader! A shout from the sky broke the tranquility of the mountain range. A swift figure appeared along with the shout. A few moments later, a person rose into the air and blocked the person's path. Why are you in such a panic? Guardian Tian. The person who had rushed back saw the person and greeted him respectfully. He said in horror, Guardian Liu? Guardian Liu and the others have been killed. What? The person who rose into the air was an old man. Horror dawned on his face when he heard the person's words. How did Guardian Liu and the others die? Didn't they go to deal with the person who killed the people from the gold-devouring organization? Yes. However, Protector Liu and the other two protectors were killed by that person's followers. The man said with a bitter face. Follower? Are you sure? The old man's face darkened. He was one of the 10 great guardians of the gold-devouring organization. All of them were at the peak of the void. All of them were 9th-level void transformation martial artists who had comprehended at least 2 9th-level void transformation concepts. However, Guardian Liu and the other two who were on par with him were killed. Moreover, they were killed by the follower of the person who killed the people from the gold-devouring organization? Yes. The person nodded with certainty. That person's follower must be at the martial monarch stage at the very least if he can kill Guardian Liu and the other two. A martial monarch stage follower? We'll have to find the leader to make a decision on this matter. The old man took a deep breath and ignored the person. Then, he shot into the mountains as though he had transformed into a bolt of lightning. Within the mountain range, in an extremely remote area, there stood a number of independent buildings. Although these buildings stood in the mountains with complicated terrain, they were very particular. Lord Leader. A few moments later, the old man arrived in front of the largest building and greeted respectfully. Whoosh! Almost as soon as the old man finished speaking, a figure appeared in front of the building out of thin air and asked calmly, Guardian Tian, what's the matter? Lord Leader, Guardian Liu and the others are all dead. Protector Tian smiled bitterly. The person whom Guardian Tian addressed as Lord Chief was naturally the leader of the gold-devouring organization. He was an old man with long gray hair and a large mole on his chin. His face darkened when he heard Guardian Tian's words. It seems that the other party is more difficult to deal with than we thought. Indeed. The bitter smile on Enforcer Tian's face became even more pronounced. I heard from the messenger that the other party didn't make a move from beginning to end. The one who made a move was only one of his followers. Follower. The eyes of the leader of the gold-devouring organization narrowed. You mean, that person's followers are all at the martial monarch stage? Are you sure? Only a martial emperor could kill his 3 great protectors. That's what the messenger said. Protector Tian nodded. How is this possible? The leader of the gold-swallowing organization narrowed his eyes again and muttered. His followers are all martial emperors. That person, are you the leader of the gold-swallowing organization? Before the leader of the gold-swallowing organization could finish his words, he was interrupted by a calm voice. The voice came from the sky, causing the leader of the gold-swallowing organization to raise his head hurriedly. Only then did he notice. He did not know when, but 4 figures had appeared in the sky above him. He recognized one of the people who was being held hostage. He was the person from the gold-swallowing organization who was in charge of monitoring the Ruoshui riverside. The other 3 people were a purple-clad young man and a red-clad woman. The 2 of them stood side by side in front. Behind the 2 of them was an ordinary-looking middle-aged man who could not be identified in a crowd. It was as though he was their shadow. Lord Leader, help! At this moment, the person from the gold-swallowing organization who brought the 3 people to the nest flew down and dashed toward the leader of the gold-swallowing organization. It was as though he was seeking protection. You betrayed the organization. Die! Guardian Tian shouted from the side. With a lift of his hand, he killed the person with a palm strike. Whoosh! 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 The commotion was huge. After a while, many people rushed over. They were the people who stayed in the gold-swallowing organization's nest. Among them, the first to arrive were 6 old men. Lord Leader. After the 6 old men arrived, They bowed respectfully at the leader of the gold-swallowing organization. After a while, one of the old men looked at the three people who were hovering in the air and said coldly, "Where did this brat come from? How dare he trespass into the gold-swallowing organization?" Xiongquan, the purple-clad young man among the three, spoke indifferently when he heard the old man's shout. "Sir." The leader of the gold-swallowing organization's expression changed. However, origin energy surged out of his body and turned into a dark blue energy. It was obvious that he had fused the water profundity. Around the dark blue energy, there seemed to be strands of purple lightning and green astral winds mixed together. Two types of ninth-level void transformation concepts. Before the leader of the gold-swallowing organization could even speak, Xiongquan had already made his move. A sword with light swirling around it appeared in Xiongquan's hand out of thin air as he dove down. Other than the leader of the gold-swallowing organization, the other 7 guardians could not see Xiongquan's movements clearly. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. At this moment, a series of ear-piercing sword whistles reverberated in the air. Sword rays that looked like a sword net fell from the sky and shrouded the 8 people, including the leader of the gold-swallowing organization. "Run!" The leader of the gold-swallowing organization shouted as a thick and broad saber appeared in his hand. He moved with the saber as he charged toward Xiongquan. At the same time, he did not forget to warn the other 7 people. The other 7 people felt that something was amiss when Xiongquan disappeared before their eyes. Hearing the whistling sounds of swords falling from the sky, they couldn't help but feel a chill in their hearts. The chill rose from the soles of their feet and went straight to their heads. When they heard the leader's warning, horror dawned on the 7 of them as they fled in all directions. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Streaks of dark blue saber rays that were intertwined with purple lightning and green wind rose into the sky. They emitted a sharp aura as though they could tear the air apart. In just a few moments, they collided with the sword rays that filled the sky. The sword net that was intertwined with the sword rays covered the sky and shrouded the dark blue saber rays like a fishing net with the fish in it. Boom, 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 boom. Loud noises reverberated in the air one after another. The sword net was suppressing the dark blue saber rays. In just a few moments, the saber rays were completely suppressed. In this wave of impact, only a layer of the sword net was removed. The remaining power did not diminish as it continued to fall. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. Wherever the sword rays passed, other than the leader of the gold-devouring organization and the 3 guardians who managed to retreat in time, the other 4 people's bodies were separated and scattered on the ground. They could not be any more dead. At this moment, more people from the gold-devouring organization arrived one after another. When they saw the scene before them, their expressions changed drastically. As their expressions changed, they looked at the middle-aged man who was standing in the air with fear in their eyes. It was this man who had single-handedly suppressed their leader and 7 guardians and killed 4 of them. Soon, their pupils couldn't help but shrink. Young Master. This was because they saw that the middle-aged man with peerless divine might in their eyes, after suppressing their leader and the 7 protectors, stop and stand there. He looked respectfully at the purple-clothed young man, as if he was waiting for his next instruction. The middle-aged man's respectful greeting to the purple-clad young man sent chills down everyone's spines. Even someone as powerful as the middle-aged man had to address the purple-clad young man as young master. Who exactly was this purple-clad young man? Buzz. At this moment, a piercing sound of a saber rang in the air. It was the leader of the gold-devouring organization who had attacked the purple-clad young man when the middle-aged man turned around to look at him. The azure saber ray that was entwined with purple lightning and green wind swept toward the middle-aged man menacingly. It was so fast that the middle-aged man's expression changed. He did not have time to react. His strength was not much stronger than the leader of the gold-devouring organization. Now that he was caught off guard, it was difficult for him to deal with the attack. Whoosh! In the blink of an eye, just as the saber ray was about to land on Xiongquan, a figure appeared out of thin air. He helped Xiongquan block the saber ray. Buzz! The saber ray landed on the person who had just arrived. Boom, 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 boom. When the saber ray landed on the person who had just arrived, it seemed to have collided with an immovable object. A deafening sound rang out. The airwaves rolled and a strong wind swept out, causing the surrounding flowers and trees to sway. The robes of the people present also fluttered in the wind, making flapping noises. Impossible. Soon after, the leader of the gold-devouring organization who had launched the sneak attack was the first to react. Horror dawned on his face as his eyes widened. It was as though he had seen something unbelievable. In the distance, as the saber ray dissipated, a purple figure was revealed. The purple-clad young man stood there. A five-colored divine dragon could be vaguely seen moving around him. As the saber ray disappeared, its speed slowed down as well, revealing itself to everyone. Wherever the five-colored divine dragon passed, it formed a layer of protective shield that protected the purple-clad young man. Nine Dragons' protection. The purple-clad young man's identity was obvious. He was none other than Duan Lingtian. Only the Nine Dragons' war sovereign technique that Duan Lingtian cultivated had a defensive martial skill like the Nine Dragons' protection. Although it was only at the rudimentary stage, it was enough to block the attack of an ordinary martial monarch stage martial artist. Leave no one alive. Soon after, Duan Lingtian's eyes turned cold. His voice was soft and emotionless. As soon as Duan Lingtian's words left his mouth, Xiong Quan, who was already furious and ready to attack, made his move. Everyone, including the leader of the gold-devouring organization, was horrified. They turned around and tried to escape. However, would they be able to escape? A moment later, the leader of the gold-devouring organization who had lost his will to fight after witnessing how terrifying Duan Lingtian was killed by Xiong Quan. The others were no exception. This gold-devouring organization has been accumulating wealth at the Ruoshui riverside for many years. I think they must have accumulated a lot of origin stones. Chapter 11:26. After obtaining the spatial ring, Duan Lingtian could not wait to perform the blood ownership claim on it. After the blood ownership claim, Duan Lingtian's eyes lit up when he looked inside. There must be at least 3,000 high-grade origin stones in there, right? More than 3,000 high-grade origin stones. In fact, the martial monarch powerhouses from the three major second-rate forces in the northern desert only had a few hundred high-grade origin stones with them. It was incomparable to 3,000 high-grade origin stones. After Duan Lingtian put away the spatial ring in his hand, he proceeded to put away the spatial rings of the other 7 gold-devouring organizations' guardians. In addition to the spatial rings of the 3 gold-devouring organizations' guardians, there were more than 500 high-grade origin stones in there. There were about 500 upper-grade primordial stones in the 10 storage rings. Although it was far from the wealth of the leader of the gold-devouring organization, it was not bad either. Currently, all the high-grade origin stones in my hands add up to around 4,000 pieces. Duan Lingtian thought to himself. Origin stones were the most widely used currency on Cloud Continent. They were extremely useful. They could be used to assist one's cultivation, inscribe inscriptions, or even set up inscription formations. Unless it's a second-rate force like the Northern Mountains Lu clan and the Northern Mountains O clan that has been around for 10,000 years, ordinary second-rate forces might not have as many high-grade origin stones as I have now, even if they put all their high-grade origin stones together. Duan Lingtian was certain about this. The gold-devouring organization must have been cheating high-grade origin stones at the Ruoshui riverside for quite some time now. Otherwise, it's impossible for them to gather so many high-grade origin stones. It was not difficult for Duan Lingtian to figure out many things. No matter what, I've gained quite a lot this time. Duan Lingtian had a bright smile on his face. At the same time, he looked at Xiong Quan next to him. Xiong Quan, take the rest of their spatial rings. See if there's anything worth taking. Yes. Xiong Quan responded respectfully and proceeded to get busy. Duan Lingtian lifted his hand again and took out the profundity fragment from the gold-devouring organization's leader's body. It was a first-level monarch stage water profundity fragment. Suddenly, Duan Lingtian seemed to have sensed something. He raised his head to look at the distant horizon and frowned. Who is it? Whoosh. As soon as Duan Lingtian's voice fell, the clouds in the sky shook, and a pitch-black bird flapped its wings and flew out. In the blink of an eye, it fled to the other side and disappeared in front of Duan Lingtian's eyes. However, Duan Lingtian's attention was not on the bird. He was still staring at the clouds in the sky. There was someone there. However, the bird earlier was just a smokescreen that the other party had purposely released in order to get away with it. Whoosh! Duan Lingtian's figure flickered and disappeared from the spot. When he reappeared, he was already high up in the sky. Whoosh! As soon as he appeared, Duan Lingtian saw an old man hiding behind the clouds. The old man shook his hand and a stream of light shot out, disappearing in the blink of an eye. Communication jade slip. Duan Lingtian's expression changed. A communication jade slip was a type of jade slip that was inscribed with a large number of inscriptions and inscription formations. It could record and transmit information to others. Whoosh! Without any hesitation, Duan Lingtian moved and chased in the direction where the communication jade slip left. However, he could not even see the shadow of the communication jade slip. Duan Lingtian's face turned grave immediately. He knew that it was impossible for him to catch up and intercept the communication jade slip now. At this moment, he had no choice but to return. When he returned, the old man had already disappeared. Trying to escape? Duan Lingtian sneered and moved again. In just a blink of an eye, he blocked the old man's path. You're just a first-level martial monarch stage martial artist, and you're trying to escape from me? Duan Lingtian stopped the old man and looked at him with disdain. Who the hell are you? Duan Lingtian asked in a deep voice as his eyes gleamed coldly. You won't kill me if I tell you? The old man took a deep breath and looked at Duan Lingtian with fear lingering in his heart as he asked. That depends on whether your answer satisfies me or not. Duan Lingtian said nonchalantly. I'm from the Yin Yang sect. The old man took a deep breath and said, Yin Yang sect? Duan Lingtian narrowed his eyes and sized the old man up. Are you sure you're from the Yin Yang sect? Let me tell you, someone pretended to be from the Yin Yang sect just now. Do you know what happened to him? I saw it. He's dead. The old man said, It seems like you followed us all the way here from the Ruoshui riverside. Duan Lingtian's narrowed eyes gleamed fiercely. Yes, the old man did not deny it. Since you're from the Yin Yang sect, then let me ask you, do you know that there are 2 female disciples in the Yin peak of the Yin Yang sect called Li Fei and Kerr? Duan Lingtian stared at the old man and asked calmly, You know about the 2 direct disciples of the Vice Peak Master of Yin Peak of the Yin Yang sect? The old man was surprised when he heard Duan Lingtian's words. Vice Peak Master of Yin Peak? Direct disciples? Duan Lingtian raised his eyebrows. He could vaguely guess that the Vice Peak Master of Yin Peak must be the sister that Qin Xiang, the Peak Master of Alcade Peak of the 7-Star Sword Sect, mentioned. She was also the female powerhouse who left his 2 fiancées behind. The 2 people you mentioned are the direct disciples of the Vice Peak Master of Yin Peak of the Yin Yang sect. Also, I heard that the one called Kerr will be married to the son of the Peak Master of Yang Peak in half a year's time. The old man nodded. When he mentioned the Peak Master of Yang Peak, his face was filled with respect. Boom. When the second half of the old man's words entered Duan Lingtian's ears, it was like a sudden clap of thunder. It shocked Duan Lingtian so much that his face turned pale. What did you say? You said that Kerr is going to marry the son of the Peak Master of Yang Peak? Duan Lingtian asked in a deep voice as he stared at the old man. His eyes were red. Yes, yes. Although the old man did not know why Duan Lingtian's reaction was so big, he did not dare to be negligent and hurriedly replied. What a joke. He had seen the technique of the person in front of him clearly just now. The gold-devouring organization's leader, whose strength was on par with his, could not even hurt the person in front of him at all. Most importantly, the person in front of him had the strength to annihilate the entire gold-devouring organization. There was no need for the person in front of him to make a move. As long as the person's follower made a move, he would definitely die. For this reason, he did not dare to hesitate when facing the person in front of him. Impossible. Duan Lingtian roared out loud. The origin energy on his body skyrocketed and transformed into a 5-colored energy. It was like a 5-colored flame that kept rising before it finally transformed into the shape of a sword. Whoosh! In the sky, the heaven and earth energy stirred and gathered to form the heaven and earth phenomenon. 2 silhouettes of ancient black dragons appeared immediately. They occupied half of the sky and emitted a terrifying aura that was visually shocking. Apart from that, thousands of silhouettes of ancient horned dragons appeared as well. However, compared to the 2 silhouettes of ancient black dragons, they were not even worth mentioning. The strength of 2 ancient black dragons. Although the old man knew the purple-clad young man before him was powerful, he did not expect him to be so powerful. He was so powerful that it made him tremble in fear. All of a sudden, the old man's expression changed drastically as though he had sensed something. In the next moment, he felt a gust of wind blowing toward him. In the next moment, the purple-clad young man appeared in front of him. Whoosh! Duan Lingtian, whose eyes were red as though he had lost his mind, reached out his hand at lightning speed and grabbed the old man's neck. The energy in his hand surged and dispersed the old man's origin energy that was on the verge of exploding. You said earlier that Kerr is going to marry the son of the Peak Master of Young Peak? Duan Lingtian asked in a deep voice. Why, yes. The old man instantly realized the purple-clad young man must have a close relationship with Kerr, the direct disciple of the Vice Peak Master of Een Peak. He was afraid the purple-clad young man would choke him to death on impulse, so he quickly told him what he had heard. I heard that Kerr. She didn't agree to it, but Young Peak's Peak Master captured Li Fei. He said he would kill Li Fei if she didn't marry him. The old man's face was red as he struggled to finish his sentence. When he reached the end of his sentence, he looked at Duan Lingtian with a pleading expression. The moment the old man's words left his mouth, the red in Duan Lingtian's eyes gradually faded away. His agitated aura also calmed down. At the same time, he released his grip on the old man's neck. At this moment, Duan Lingtian calmed down. Kerr was not willing to marry the son of the Peak Master of Young Peak. What's going on? Aren't they the direct disciples of the Vice Peak Master of Een Peak? The Vice Peak Master of Een Peak didn't care about this matter? Duan Lingtian asked in a deep voice. It's not that he didn't care, but he couldn't. The old man stretched his neck and said slowly, the Vice Peak Master of Een Peak and the Peak Master of Een Peak were severely injured when they returned from a long journey a year ago. They're still in closed-door cultivation in the forbidden area of Een Peak to heal their injuries. It's said that the Vice Peak Master of Een Peak's first direct disciple, Yang Shui, had entered the forbidden area many times because of this matter. However, her efforts were in vain. The old man sighed when he reached the end of his sentence. Upon hearing this, Duan Lingtian's face turned gloomy again. The Peak Master of Yang Peak. At the same time, waves of cold killing intent radiated from his body as though it was about to devour someone. When will the Een Yang sect's swift boat arrive? Can I reach the Een Yang sect in half a year? Duan Lingtian looked at the old man and asked coldly. The Een Yang sect's swift boat will arrive in half a month's time. Once you board the swift boat, you'll reach the inner land and reach the Een Yang sect in 3 months if there are no accidents. The old man replied honestly. He was really afraid of this purple-clad young man in front of him now. This was a powerhouse who could exert the strength of 2 ancient black dragons. Killing him would be as easy as killing a chicken or cutting grass. Right now, he could only hope that the other party would spare his life for the sake of his cooperation. Duan Lingtian sighed in relief when he heard that he could reach the Een Yang sect in time. Kerr, little Feier, wait for me. I'll save both of you very soon. As for the people who hurt you, I'll make them pay the price. Duan Lingtian looked in the direction of the inner land. He could not wait to rush to the 2 girls' side and help them get out of this predicament. What's the message in the communication jade slip that you sent out earlier? Chapter 11:27. It's nothing much. It just recorded the news of the gold-devouring organization being destroyed. That communication jade slip was sent to the other disciples of our Een Yang sect at the Rua Shui riverside. The old man replied truthfully. Subsequently, Duan Lingtian learned from the old man that he was the person in charge of the Yin-Yang sect stationed at the Ruo Shui riverside in the southern outer land. There were a total of 3 people stationed at the Ruo Shui riverside. As a first-level martial monarch stage martial artist, he was the leader of the 3. Then, does this mean you guys have seen what the gold-devouring organization did? Duan Lingtian asked.
Yes.
The old man nodded. Someone pretended to be a Yin-Yang sect disciple and sold a fake boarding token. Did you guys not care at all? Duan Lingtian asked again. In any case, those high-grade origin stones will end up in our hands in the end, so why should we care? The old man replied nonchalantly. What do you mean? Duan Lingtian could not react at that moment. Over the years, there have been countless organizations like the gold-devouring organization at the Ruo Shui riverside. We usually let them go first. When the origin stones in their hands have accumulated to a certain extent, we'll destroy them and seize the origin stones in their hands. It's just that this time, you've beaten me to it. The old man smiled wryly when he reached the end of his sentence. I see. Duan Lingtian finally understood. At the same time, he seemed to have recalled something and asked, then, does this mean I violated the interests of the Yin-Yang sect by doing this? That's right. The old man nodded. You want to seize those origin stones back? Duan Lingtian asked as he narrowed his eyes and looked at the old man with interest. I dare not. I dare not. The old man panicked when he heard Duan Lingtian's words. He hurriedly shook his head to express his stance, afraid that Duan Lingtian would misunderstand. What a joke. Seize the origin stones from this person in front of him? Unless he was tired of living. Otherwise, he would not dare to do so even if he was beaten to death. You don't dare to do that. However, when the Yin-Yang sect's swift boat arrives, once the people escorting the swift boat find out that I have origin stones in my hands, they won't be afraid, right? Duan Lingtian looked deeply at the old man and asked, the strongest person in our Yin-Yang sect who's escorting the swift boat is only at the 4th level martial monarch stage. If he knew your strength, of course, he wouldn't dare to offend you. The old man said with a bitter smile, not only that, Lord, you're able to exert the strength of 2 ancient black dragons and 5,000 ancient horned dragons without using any spirit weapon. It's obvious that you're at the 7th level martial monarch stage or above. It's impossible for our Yin-Yang sect to offend you for the sake of those origin stones. When the old man said this, the bitter smile on his face deepened. Unleashing the strength of 2 ancient black dragons and 5,000 ancient horned dragons without using a spirit weapon. Such strength was most likely at the 7th level martial monarch stage or above. A 7th level martial monarch stage powerhouse whose origin energy was fully unleashed was equivalent to the strength of an ancient black dragon. An ordinary 7th level martial monarch stage powerhouse would usually have comprehended 1 7th level monarch stage profundity, 2 1st and 2nd level monarch stage profundities. The former was equivalent to the strength of 8,000 ancient horned dragons. The latter was equivalent to the strength of 4,000 to 5,000 ancient horned dragons when added together. All added together, it was equivalent to the strength of 2 ancient black dragons and 2,000 to 3,000 ancient horned dragons. The strength of a slightly stronger 7th level martial monarch stage martial artist would be even stronger. It's comparable to his strength. It's almost impossible for him to be below the 7th level martial monarch stage. The old man speculated in his heart as he looked at the purple-clad young man in front of him. At this moment, Duan Lingtian's eyes were fixed on the old man. He could tell that he was not lying earlier. A 4th-level martial monarch stage escorting the swift boat? Seems like it. Duan Lingtian thought to himself. Although there were many martial monarch powerhouses in a first-rate force, whether it was the 4th-level martial monarch stage or the 7th-level martial monarch stage, there was a huge gap that was difficult to overcome. He was not surprised that the old man had mistaken him for someone above the 7th level martial monarch stage. Even if it was a real LV7 martial royal realm martial artist, if they didn't use a spiritual weapon, there were only a few who could defeat him in terms of strength. How many people above the 7th level martial monarch stage in your Yin-Yang sect? Duan Lingtian looked at the old man and asked bluntly. This time, he took the swift boat across the Ruo Shui River and arrived at the Yin-Yang sect. After arriving at the Yin-Yang sect, he wanted to force his way into the Yin-Yang sect and take his two fiancées away. During this process, he would have to fight with the powerhouses of the Yin-Yang sect. Therefore, he asked the old man this question in hopes that he would be mentally prepared and at the same time understand the strength of the Yin-Yang sect. As the saying went, know yourself and know your enemy, and you will never be defeated. The old man could not help but be stunned when he heard Duan Lingtian's question. It was obvious that he did not expect Duan Lingtian to ask this out of the blue. However, he still answered truthfully. As far as I know, there are not many people above the 7th level martial monarch stage in our Yin-Yang sect. Among them, the Peak Master and 2 Vice Peak Masters of our Yang Peak are above the 7th level martial monarch stage. The same goes for the Guardian Elder. On top of that, the Peak Master and 2 Vice Peak Masters of Yin Peak are above the 7th level martial monarch stage. These are the only 7 I know of. The old man said slowly, 7 people above the 7th level martial monarch stage? Duan Lingtian muttered to himself. His eyes gleamed as he asked again, are there any 9th level martial monarchs? I don't know about that. I only know that the 7 of them are at the 7th level martial monarch stage. Among them, the Peak Masters of Yang Peak and Yin Peak are the strongest. The old man said. Duan Lingtian nodded. Sir, do you have any other questions? If not, I'll take my leave first. The old man took a deep breath and looked at Duan Lingtian. There was a hint of anxiety on his face. If the old man wanted to kill him, he would not survive even if he had 10 lives. All right. Duan Lingtian nodded nonchalantly. Whoosh. The old man had an excited expression on his face when he obtained Duan Lingtian's agreement. His figure flashed as he flew toward the direction of the Ruo Shui riverside. Just when Duan Lingtian seemed to be deep in thought, Duan Lingtian's expression changed. Whoosh! A short-lived sword cry broke the silence beside Duan Lingtian's ears and woke him up immediately. At the same time, he looked at the source of the sword cry. Duan Lingtian could not help but be stunned when he saw the scene before his eyes. The old man who was supposed to leave had his body pierced by a sword and was no longer breathing. Whoosh! The figure that was like a fire elf appeared in front of the old man in just a blink of an eye. Her slender hand grabbed the air and took the old man's spatial ring. The profundity fragment in the old man's body was no exception. After taking the spatial ring and the profundity fragment, the figure that was like a fire elf moved again and charged toward Duan Lingtian. At the same time, the old man's body fell from the sky. At that moment, Duan Lingtian felt a scorching aura coming at him. However, he had no intention of dodging at all. Tian Wu, why did you kill him? Duan Lingtian asked in shock as he lowered his head and looked at the old man's body that was about to fall to the ground. I can't kill him? The figure that was like a fire elf was none other than Feng Tianwu. When she passed the profundity fragment and the spatial ring to Duan Lingtian, a hint of confusion could be seen on her face. It's all right. I've already killed him. Duan Lingtian, who took the profundity fragment from Feng Tianwu, shook his head with an indifferent expression on his face. Although he said he would spare the old man's life as long as he was satisfied with the old man's answer. The old man was very cooperative and answered to his satisfaction. However, he was not the one who killed the old man. It was Feng Tianwu who did it. Moreover, he did not ask Feng Tianwu to kill the old man. For this reason, he did not break his promise to the old man. Let's go. After calling out to Feng Tianwu, Duan Lingtian called Xiong Quan and headed toward the direction of the Ruo Shui riverside. Soon after, Duan Lingtian and the other two returned to the Ruo Shui riverside. The group of people at the Ruo Shui riverside were terrified when they saw Duan Lingtian and the other two returning. They only glanced at the Duan Lingtian and the other two before they no longer dared to look at them. What a joke. These 3 people were just followers, and they were all at the martial monarch stage. If they dared to look at them for too long, they might just kill them if they were displeased. If that was the case, they would really have nowhere to cry even if they wanted to. Duan Lingtian's gaze swept across the group of people in front of him in an attempt to find the 2 Yin-Yang sect disciples who were stationed at the Ruo Shui riverside. However, he found nothing in the end. Nobody gave themselves away. They're really careful. Duan Lingtian thought to himself. Right now, he was also observing the surroundings and the sky above the Ruo Shui riverside. He could confirm that nobody was hiding at the side. Everyone should be gathered here, including the two Yin Yang sect disciples. Senior, thank you for your reminder earlier. Soon after, Duan Lingtian looked at one of the old men and thanked him through voice transmission. However, the old man did not respond. Instantly, Duan Lingtian realized that the old man had his concerns. He must be afraid that someone would notice him talking to him. For a moment, Duan Lingtian intentionally walked closer to the old man. He glanced at the old man and communicated with him through voice transmission. Even without my reminder, you're still not afraid of the gold-devouring organization. This old man has meddled in other people's business. The old man replied through voice transmission with a sigh in his tone. Senior, you must be joking. I'll remember Senior's kindness in my heart. Duan Lingtian replied through voice transmission. His words came from the bottom of his heart. Time passed by quietly. Half a month passed by very quickly. During this period of time, the people from the gold-devouring organization seemed to have vanished without a trace. For a moment, the people at the Ruo Shui riverside felt less restrained, and it became even more lively. The swift boat is here. Nobody knew when, but a cry of surprise rang out, startling everyone present. Swift boat? Upon hearing the voice, Duan Lingtian was not interested. He stood there with his eyes closed to rest. Chapter 11:28. Duan Lingtian was no stranger to the swift boat, since he had fused with the memories of the reincarnation Emperor Wu from his 2 lifetimes. However, it was Feng Tianwu and Stone Quan's first time seeing it. It was only natural that they were surprised. Whoosh! Duan Lingtian seemed to be resting with his eyes closed, but he was actually cultivating the 9 Dragons War Sovereign Technique's 9th form, the Divine Dragon form. He turned a deaf ear to the whistling sound that was getting closer and closer. Under the gaze of Feng Tianwu and Xiong Quan, a small black dot appeared in the sky in the distance. Then, the small black dot continued to grow bigger. In the end, it transformed into an object that looked like a boat. This is the swift boat? Xiong Quan's eyes were filled with surprise as he looked at the boat-shaped object that was getting closer and closer. It doesn't look much different from an ordinary boat. Of course, it's just the appearance. The size of an ordinary boat is far smaller than this. Whoosh! After a while, the swift boat arrived at the Ruo Shui riverside, completely revealing its true appearance in front of everyone. Xiong Quan and Feng Tianwu looked at it. They discovered that the swift boat was made of some special material. Although they did not touch it, they could tell that the material was not simple just by looking at it. Apart from that, there were also some seats scattered around in the swift boat. These seats were either in groups of 3 to 5 or in pairs. Are they the Yin Yang sect people who are controlling the swift boat? Soon after, Xiong Quan regained his senses and looked at the people standing at the front and back of the swift boat. There were 2 people in total, and both of them were old men. Just by standing there, they gave Xiong Quan a sense of extreme danger. These are 2 powerhouses. This was the first thought that popped up in Xiong Quan's mind. His intuition told him that these 2 people from Yin Yang sect should be more powerful than him. At this moment, whoosh, whoosh, 2 figures shot out from the crowd and soon arrived near the swift boat. They joined the 2 old men who had just gotten off the swift boat and bowed respectfully to the 2 old men. Elder. After bowing, they joined the 2 old men and whispered to each other. Are they from Yin Yang sect as well? They were standing right next to me just now. I really couldn't tell. Immediately, many people who had been waiting at the Ruo Shui riverside were greatly surprised. On one side of the flying boat, 2 Yin Yang sect's disciples whispered to each other. The 2 Yin Yang sect's old men's faces darkened subtly. At the same time, their gazes landed on a purple figure standing in the distance. Is he the one who annihilated the gold-swallowing organization and seized a large amount of upper-grade primordial stones that should have belonged to our Yin Yang sect? One of the old men murmured as a cold light flashed in his eyes. It's inconvenient for us to lay our hands on him here. Otherwise, if other people find out that the Yin Yang sect allowed the gold-swallowing organization to do as they please, our reputation will definitely be tarnished. Another old man said, "Let's wait until we reach the inner land and return to the Yin-Yang sect." The former said, "When we arrive at the Yin-Yang sect, no matter how many upper-grade primordial stones he has taken, make him spit them all out. Don't be careless. His identity must not be simple. Even his follower is at the martial monarch stage." The latter said, "Naturally, the person who was targeted by the two old men was Duan Lingtian. Feng Tianwu and Xiong Quan, who were standing next to Duan Lingtian, had also become the focus of their attention. Elders, Elder Huang hasn't returned yet. I'm guessing he must have been killed by them." The Yin-Yang sect's disciple standing by the side said in a low voice, "We'll be happy if he hands over the things that belong to our Yin-Yang sect. However, he actually dared to kill our Yin-Yang sect's elder. When we return to the sect, I'll make sure he won't be able to return alive." The two Yin-Yang sect's elders looked at each other and saw the gleam in each other's eyes. It was as though they were about to devour someone. "Miss Tianwu, did you notice that those two old men are looking at us from time to time?" Xiong Quan glanced at the two Yin-Yang sect's elders with a hint of dread and asked Feng Tianwu. "They don't come with good intentions." Feng Tianwu, whose face seemed to be covered with a layer of frost, opened her red lips lightly. She was a woman of few words. "Everyone, listen up. The swift boat will depart in an hour. During this time, you can buy a boarding pass from those two." Soon after, one of the Yin-Yang sect's elders pointed at the other two Yin-Yang sect's disciples and said in a loud voice. The moment his words left his mouth, an uproar broke out as expected. "When I bought the fake boarding pass, all of you Yin-Yang sect's disciples were right beside me. Why didn't they remind me? You made me lose 20 high-grade origin stones for nothing." Many people said angrily. When they first arrived, they were all deceived by the gold-devouring organization because nobody reminded them. Each of them spent 20 high-grade origin stones to buy the fake boarding pass. Initially, when they found out that they were deceived, they did not dare to say anything when they saw how powerful the gold-devouring organization was. However, when they found out that the two Yin-Yang sect's disciples had been standing with them all this while, and that these two disciples had never reminded them, they were instantly enraged. If all of you Yin-Yang sect's disciples were to interfere in this matter, would the gold-devouring organization be so brazen? That's right. That's 20 high-grade origin stones. It's not a small amount. Many people whispered and discussed among themselves as they stared at the four Yin-Yang sect's disciples with righteous indignation. "Humph!" A cold voice drowned out the clamor that rose and fell one after another. It was one of the Yin-Yang sect's elders who took a step forward. The aura of a martial monarch powerhouse swept out and suppressed the indignant crowd to the point that they could barely breathe, let alone continue to speak. "All of you were greedy and got deceived. Who else can you blame? Our Yin-Yang sect's swift boat costs 30 high-grade origin stones per person. The price is clearly marked, and we don't cheat anyone. Don't tell me you've never heard of it before." The Yin-Yang sect's elder said coldly. Upon hearing the Yin-Yang sect's elder's words, the group of people who were deceived earlier was instantly rendered speechless. That was right. Although it was the first time many of them came to the Ruoshui riverside and took the swift boat, they had more or less heard about the cost of the swift boat before they came. 30 high-grade origin stones, and the price was clearly marked. However, when they arrived, they saw someone selling a boarding pass for the swift boat, and it only cost 20 high-grade origin stones. Coupled with the fact that the boarding pass looked decent and nobody reminded them about it. At that time, they were impulsive and only wanted to save 10 high-grade origin stones. Naturally, they were deceived. Even if we were deceived because we were greedy, you Yin-Yang sect can't indulge them like this. Your Yin-Yang sect's disciples were here, so why didn't you remind us? Aren't you just watching us get deceived? Soon, someone said angrily. Remind you? Another Yin-Yang sect's elder glanced at him coldly. If you weren't greedy, would you have been deceived? If you had refused, would they have pestered you? Don't tell me that all of you have been tricked. Those who were not deceived and did not buy the fake boarding pass, were they hurt? Why do you think they were not hurt? It's all because of our Yin-Yang sect. If it wasn't for our Yin-Yang sect's deterrence, would they have survived? Would all of you have only lost 20 high-grade origin stones and not your lives? The Yin-Yang sect's elder spoke loudly, leaving the crowd speechless at once. It seemed to be true. At once, someone went to buy the boarding pass from the two Yin-Yang sect's disciples obediently. Soon after, more and more people followed suit. What a Yin-Yang sect! It's obvious that they're indulging in this on purpose, and yet, they still make it sound so righteous. Nobody knew when, but Duan Lingtian opened his eyes and glanced at the four Yin-Yang sect's people. A smirk crept up the corner of his mouth. Looks like these two old fellows already know that we've annihilated the gold-devouring organization. On top of that, Duan Lingtian also noticed that the two Yin-Yang sect's elders were looking at them with a cold gleam in their eyes. However, they did not attack them in public. They can still tolerate it? Duan Lingtian was shocked. In fact, the Yin-Yang sect's man who followed them to the gold-devouring organization's lair had already been killed by Tian Wu, and he did not have time to inform the rest of the Yin-Yang sect about his strength. He only had time to send out the news that they had annihilated the gold-devouring organization through a communication jade slip. Therefore, the four Yin-Yang sect's people in front of him did not know about his strength, and it was not because they were afraid of him that they did not dare to attack him. They were just tolerating it. Perhaps it's because there are so many people here that they can't make a move. After all, as soon as they make a move, it'll be exposed that the Yin-Yang sect deliberately let the gold-devouring organization go. It was not difficult for Duan Lingtian to guess all of this. Xiong Quan, go and buy 3 boarding passes. Duan Lingtian looked at Xiong Quan and raised his hand. A spatial ring appeared in his hand. After removing the ownership claim, he casually tossed it to Xiong Quan. I've put 1,000 high-grade origin stones in there. Yes, young master. Xiong Quan replied respectfully and immediately went to buy the boarding passes from the two Yin-Yang sect's disciples. Duan Lingtian and Feng Tianwu stood side by side and looked at the four Yin-Yang sect's people from afar. 2 4th-level martial monarchs. With the cultivation base of these two people, they should be considered as elders in the Yin-Yang sect, right? Duan Lingtian thought to himself, I have some impression of the other two people. They were in the crowd earlier. However, they hid very well and did not expose their identities. They should be the Yin-Yang sect's disciples who received the communication jade slip. Both of them are 9th-level void transformation martial artists. If I'm not mistaken, they should be at the peak of the void. Duan Lingtian thought to himself. In the entire Cloud continent, a martial artist at the peak of the void could be considered as an important figure with an extraordinary status, especially in third-rate forces. A martial artist at the peak of the void was a leader. However, a martial artist at the peak of the void could only be considered as an outstanding disciple in a first-rate force because there were many martial monarchs in the first-rate force. If one had not broken through to the martial monarch stage, one would not be ranked. Chapter 11:29. As long as you infuse your origin energy into the boarding token that our Yin-Yang sect sells, the words Yin-Yang will appear. However, the fake boarding token that you guys bought won't have such a situation. Just when many people were comparing the fake boarding token with the real one, the voice of the Yin-Yang sect elder resonated in a timely manner. Immediately, many people began to experiment. It really is. Soon, they realized that it was just as the Yin-Yang sect elder had said. The words Yin-Yang would only appear when they infused their origin energy into the real boarding token. However, there was no reaction at all when they infused their origin energy into the fake boarding token. Looks like there's a high possibility that there's an inscription master above the 7th-level martial monarch stage in the Yin-Yang sect. Duan Lingtian thought to himself. Previously, when he was in the sky above the gold-devouring organization's lair, it was difficult for him to catch up with the communication jade slip that the Yin-Yang sect elder had sent out. At that time, he already knew. That communication jade slip was made by an inscription master with an extremely high level of spiritual energy. Otherwise, the speed of the communication jade slip would not be so fast. Now that he saw the boarding token that would appear with the words Yin-Yang, when he infused it with his origin energy, Duan Lingtian was completely certain. The boarding token was inscribed and set up with a special inscription formation. Once the origin energy was infused into it, words, or pictures would appear according to the outline of the inscription formation. This kind of inscription formation can only be inscribed by an inscription master whose spiritual energy has reached the 7th level martial monarch stage or above. It was precisely because of this that Duan Lingtian could determine that there was such an inscription master in the Yin Yang sect. An hour later, the group of people, including Duan Lingtian, handed the boarding tokens in their hands to the 2 Yin Yang sect elders one after another. After the latter verified them, they boarded the swift boat one by one. It was worth mentioning. When it was Duan Lingtian's turn, the Yin Yang sect elder looked at Duan Lingtian with hostility in his eyes. It was as though he could not wait to attack Duan Lingtian directly. Duan Lingtian was not surprised by this. Moreover, he could tell that the other party would not attack him for the time being. Perhaps they want to wait until they reach the inner land and the Yin Yang sect before making their move on me. If he were in the other party's shoes, he would have done the same. Duan Lingtian and the other 2 boarded the swift boat one after another and sat in the innermost seats in groups of 3 to 5. Duan Lingtian and Feng Tianwu were sitting close to each other. Xiong Quan, on the other hand, tactfully sat near the outer seats. This position is not bad. Duan Lingtian straightened his chest and raised his head. He could clearly see the Ruo Shui River. The Ruo Shui River stretched as far as the eye could see. It was like stagnant water. There was not a single ripple. It was extremely calm. However, Duan Lingtian knew very well in his heart. Behind the calm surface of the Ruo Shui River, there was a hidden killing intent. Closer to the center of the Ruo Shui River, the water surface would become increasingly unstable. The gravitational force and gravity would also increase, making it difficult for people to fly on the surface of the river. If a martial artist with a low cultivation base tried to force his way into the Ruo Shui River, there would only be one result: exhaustion and fall into the river. Once he fell into the river, there would only be one result: death. 15 minutes later, apart from the 2 Yin Yang sect disciples, everyone else had boarded the airboat. The old man who had warned Duan Lingtian earlier but did not dare to greet him later was now sitting near Duan Lingtian and the other 2. Little brother, I'm really sorry about earlier. I was just worried that there might be spies from the gold-devouring organization in the group of people earlier. The old man looked at Duan Lingtian and said apologetically. Everyone was afraid of death. He was no exception. The reason why he dared to warn Duan Lingtian earlier was because everyone was looking at Duan Lingtian at that time. Therefore, he was not worried about being discovered. It's all right. Duan Lingtian shook his head, indicating that he did not care. Rise. At this moment, a loud shout reverberated in the air. It was one of the Yin Yang sect elders who shouted. Then, the other Yin Yang sect elder who stood in front of the airboat began to get busy. The airboat could only be activated by someone. Whoosh! The moment the Yin Yang sect elder's words left his mouth, the airboat rose into the air. After accumulating strength for a while, it shot into the sky above the Ruo Shui River like an arrow leaving the bow. The moment the airboat entered the sky above the Ruo Shui River, it suddenly trembled and fell rapidly. What's going on? Is there something wrong with the airboat? We can't be so unlucky, right? At once, many people cried out in surprise. After a while, the airboat came to a stop and rose slowly. Many people felt relieved. What a strong gravity on this Ruo Shui River. Then, those who were frightened to the point that they still had lingering fear in their hearts sighed. Of course, if it's not for the strong gravity on the Ruo Shui River and the fact that the river water can kill people, why would we spend 30 high-grade origin stones to board this airboat for no reason? Some of the people who were calm from the beginning until the end, and it was obvious that it was not their first time crossing the Ruo Shui River on this airboat, said as a matter of fact. The people nodded their heads one after another when they heard this. Little brother, is this your first time on this airboat? The old man, who was frightened to the point that he still had lingering fear in his heart, looked at Duan Lingtian and asked. Although he was also frightened earlier, since he was facing Duan Lingtian and the other 2, he could clearly see the expressions of Duan Lingtian and the other 2 from the beginning until the end. Among the 3 of them, only the purple-clad young man did not move at all. It was as though he knew the airboat would fall. It's my first time. However, someone told me that we would encounter such a situation. Duan Lingtian replied. The old man was enlightened. When he saw Duan Lingtian closing his eyes to rest, he tactfully did not open his mouth to disturb him. Duan Lingtian closed his eyes and cultivated in peace. 9 dragons wore sovereign technique, divine dragon form. I still have half a year's time. With the help of the overbearing medicinal efficacy of the rebirth pill, it's only a matter of time before I break through to the 3rd level martial monarch stage. After cultivating for a while, Duan Lingtian became a little impatient. The moment he thought about the situation of his 2 fiancées, he could not calm down at all. Impatience and anger continued to spread in his heart, threatening to burst out at any moment. After a while, he finally managed to suppress it. The aftereffects of being devilified by the Devil Seal tablet are too great. After calming down, Duan Lingtian sighed secretly. Previously, when he was in the sky above the gold-devouring organization's lair, he was instantly enraged when he found out that his 2 fiancées were in a bad situation. At that time, he immediately grabbed the neck of the Yin-Yang sect's old man. If it was not for his rationality that suppressed his anger as much as possible, he would have strangled the old man to death. The old man would not have been killed by Feng Tianwu at all. However, even if I can break through to the 3rd level martial monarch stage, I might not be able to defeat the powerhouses of the Yin-Yang sect, especially that peak master of Yang Peak. As one of the strongest people in the Yin-Yang sect, his strength is at least at the 8th level martial monarch stage. Duan Lingtian's thoughts spun rapidly as he continued to ponder. According to the reincarnation Emperor Wu's memory, many first-rate forces had 9th level martial monarch stage powerhouses during his era. That peak master of Yang Peak of the Yin-Yang sect might be a 9th level martial monarch stage powerhouse. When he thought up to this point, Duan Lingtian secretly gasped. If the other party was really a 9th level martial monarch stage powerhouse, it was impossible for him to have the strength to defeat the other party in just half a year. Unless my fused profundity can break through and become like the Emperor's stage profundity, once I break through, I'll gain the strength of an ancient black dragon. Otherwise, it's impossible for me to be a match for him. Duan Lingtian knew this very well. Due to this reason, Duan Lingtian felt extremely pressured. It was so pressuring that he could barely breathe. Cultivate. Comprehend. After taking a deep breath, Duan Lingtian finally calmed down and began to cultivate again. He held the 3 nature profundity fragments in his hand to comprehend and improve his fused profundity. The sword Tao that originated from the word sword in his mind was constantly being comprehended. Currently, he was eager to improve his strength. If he was not strong enough, he might not be able to save the 2 girls from the sea of fire even if he reached the inner land and the Yin-Yang sect. Something's bothering him. Feng Tianwu, who was sitting quietly next to Duan Lingtian, also noticed that something was wrong with Duan Lingtian. However, she was sensible enough not to disturb him. Instead, she quietly stayed by his side. The swift boat was very fast. Gusts of swift wind blew toward them. However, these gusts of wind were all blocked by the light shield on the swift boat. It did not affect the people on the swift boat at all. The light shield was formed by the defense formation. As time went by, the people on the swift boat began to close their eyes and cultivate one after another. For a moment, the entire swift boat fell into silence. At the front of the swift boat, the Yin-Yang sect elder also had some free time since the swift boat was flying normally. He and the other Yin-Yang sect elder standing at the back of the swift boat looked at each other before they looked at Duan Lingtian at the same time. There was a terrifying killing intent in the depth of their eyes. Right now, they could not wait to throw Duan Lingtian out of the swift boat. However, they did not dare to do so. If they did so, they would be delighted. However, it would also cause fear in other people. In the future, once this matter spread out, nobody would dare to ride on the Yin-Yang sect's swift boat anymore. A month's time passed very quickly. The journey was smooth, and they did not encounter any accidents. Occasionally, some small swift boats would pass by, but they would stop nearby for a while before leaving again. More than 90% of the people in the small swift boat were bandits who wandered on the Ruoshui River. However, these bandits had good judgment. Usually, they would not provoke people that they could not afford to offend. Just like the Yin-Yang sect's swift boat, Not many bandits dared to provoke it. They would avoid it even if they saw it. Of course, it was only because there were not many bandits who dared to provoke it. On the Ruashui River, there were many powerhouses among the bandits. There were even bandits whose strength was above the 4th-level martial monarch stage. For example, these bandits would not let go of the Yin-Yang sect's swift boat even if they encountered it. Chapter 11:30. Sometimes, such bandits would even deliberately loot the Yin-Yang sect's swift boats. Due to the fear of these kinds of bandits, the Yin-Yang sect elders standing at the front of the swift boat would steer the swift boat to avoid a straight line every once in a while. Because of this, their safety was greatly improved. Of course, this did not mean that they were absolutely safe. Sometimes, if they were unlucky, anything could happen to them. Time passed by quietly. Another half a month had passed, and the swift boat was already halfway through its journey. It would only take another half a month to reach the inner land. The two Yin-Yang sect elders breathed a sigh of relief when they saw that they had successfully completed half of the journey. However, before they could catch their breaths, horror dawned on their faces as they looked in the direction of the swift boat in unison. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. An ear-piercing whistling sound came from the front of the swift boat, and it was getting closer and closer. This was also the reason why the two Yin-Yang sect elders' faces turned pale. Bandits! In a flash of lightning, the two Yin-Yang sect elders looked at each other and spat out the two words in unison. They did not deliberately suppress their voices, so it was exceptionally loud in this quiet, swift boat. In an instant, more than half of the people were awakened. After these people were awakened, they were still a little confused at first. However, when they regained their senses, horror dawned on them one after another. What? Be bandits? Bandits. They had encountered bandits on the Ruashui River? They had heard of the bandits on the Ruashui River before. They were far more powerful than the ordinary bandits in the inner land and outer land. Some of them were even at the martial monarch stage. Very soon, the people who had regained their senses looked at the front of the swift boat. They could see a few black dots that were getting bigger and bigger as they rushed towards them. Xiong Quan was also awakened by the noise. When he realized what was happening, his face turned grave. We are on the Yin-Yang sect's swift boat. The bandits shouldn't dare to provoke us, right? The two elders are at the martial monarch stage. Even if they provoke us, we might not be the ones at a disadvantage. It's not easy for us to cross the Ruashui River. It's considered a success for us to encounter bandits. Many people whispered to each other. These people were all people who were crossing the Ruashui River on the swift boat for the first time. They were full of confidence in the two Yin-Yang sect elders and did not think that anything would happen to them. Now, they were looking forward to the scene of the two Yin-Yang sect elders killing the bandits and forcing them to retreat. Humph, you guys are really naive. Hearing the words of these hotheads, some people, who had taken flying boats to cross the Ruashui River more than once, snorted coldly and said, "Didn't you see the change in the expressions of the two elders? Do you think those bandits won't be able to tell that the flying boat we're on belongs to the Yin-Yang sect? The bandits of the Ruashui River are all cunning. If they weren't confident, do you think they would make a move?" As soon as this person finished speaking, everyone who had woken up on the swift boat looked at the two Yin-Yang sect elders in unison. Shwa, shwa, shwa. When they saw the ugly faces of the two Yin-Yang sect elders, their expressions changed again. They realized that the bandits in front of the flying boat were indeed hostile. Even the expressions of the two Yin-Yang sect elders changed. It's obvious that they don't have the confidence to deal with these bandits. What should we do? I don't want to die. I don't want to die. Why did I want to go to the inner land for no reason? Look at it now. I'm going to lose my life here. At once, the entire swift boat was in chaos. Most of the people's expressions changed drastically as fear filled their eyes. It was as if doomsday had arrived. In such a noisy environment, even those who were focused on cultivating would be woken up by the noise. Among them were Duan Lingtian, Feng Tianwu, and the old man who was sitting not far away from Duan Lingtian. It was the old man who had kindly warned Duan Lingtian at the Ruashui River. Bandits? Even the two Yin-Yang sect elders don't have the confidence to deal with them? Soon, the group of people who had just woken up, including Duan Lingtian, learned about the dangerous situation they were in. Little brother, it seems like we're going to die here today. The old man looked at Duan Lingtian and said with a long face. A gleam flashed across Duan Lingtian's eyes. He did not say anything as he looked at the front of the swift boat immediately. With just a glance, he saw 7 small swift boats whizzing towards them. They arrived at the front, back, and sides of their swift boat, surrounding them completely. Friends from Yin-Yang sect, listen up. Stop the swift boat immediately. Otherwise, we'll destroy your boat and kill you. At this moment, a loud voice resonated from the small swift boat in front of the swift boat. The voice was filled with coldness as though it came from an ice cave. It made one's heart palpitate. No, no. At once, the Yin-Yang sect's swift boat fell into chaos again. Humph. A cold snort resonated and suppressed the noise. It was the Yin-Yang sect elder in front of the swift boat. He snorted and began to control the swift boat at the same time. After a while, the swift boat began to decelerate until it came to a stop. The swift boat that had just come to a stop began to freefall again. It fell from the sky and shocked many people on the swift boat, so much that their faces changed drastically. It was only when the swift boat stopped falling that their faces relaxed. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. After the swift boat came to a stop, a series of swift whizzing sounds resonated in the air. Numerous figures appeared at the front, back, and sides of the swift boat. It was a group of people dressed in black. Among these people, there were old men and middle-aged men. It's you guys again. Just when the people on the swift boat were on high alert, the two Yin-Yang sect elders on the swift boat cried out in shock. The moment the two Yin-Yang sect elders' words left their mouth, many people on the swift boat heaved a sigh of relief. Based on the words of the two Yin-Yang sect elders, it was obvious that they had encountered these bandits before. Since the two Yin-Yang sect elders were still alive, it meant that these bandits did not have the ability to kill them. Duan Lingtian raised his eyebrows and watched the scene before him with interest. He was also curious. How did these two Yin-Yang sect elders know this group of bandits? Elders, we meet again after half a year. I must say that we're really fated. Among the group of bandits standing at the edge of the swift boat, an old man in black who stood at the front of the swift boat looked at the two Yin-Yang sect elders and smiled faintly. Who's fated with you? The two Yin-Yang sect elders' faces turned pale. Half a year ago, the 3 of us fought with the 2 of you. Although we were able to suppress the 2 of you, if this continued, even if we managed to kill the 2 of you, we would have suffered some losses as well. As if he could see the confusion on the people on the Yin-Yang sect's swift boat, the old man in black said nonchalantly, "That time, we came to an agreement. Give us 1,000 high-grade origin stones, and we'll leave on our own. This time, I won't ask for too much. It's still 1,000 high-grade origin stones. What do you think?" After the old man in black finished speaking, he looked at the two Yin-Yang sect elders. At this moment, the people finally understood why the two Yin-Yang sect elders did not die when they encountered these bandits in the past. It was because they had paid the toll. As if they were agreeing with the words of the old man in black, the other 2 old men beside him suddenly released 2 powerful auras. It was so oppressive that most of the people on the swift boat felt suffocated. Martial Monarch Powerhouse. At this moment, other than Duan Lingtian and Feng Tianwu, everyone on the swift boat had a change of expression. Not only that, he's not an ordinary martial monarch powerhouse. Among the people on the swift boat, there was no lack of insightful people. Their faces were extremely pale. The two Yin-Yang sect elders' faces turned even paler. However, they did not reply to the bandit leader's words. Instead, their eyes landed on the back of the swift boat in unison. To be more precise, their eyes landed on a purple-clad young man, Duan Lingtian. At this moment, the bandit leader also looked at Duan Lingtian with great interest. A gleam flashed across his eyes. Why are the 2 elders looking at me? Since we can spend money to avoid disaster, why do we have to fight to the death? Seeing the 2 Yin-Yang sect elders looking at him, Duan Lingtian grinned. There are about 70 of us in this group. Each of us paid 30 high-grade origin stones to ride on this swift boat. In total, it's 2,000 high-grade origin stones. 1,000 high-grade origin stones is only half of what you've collected this time. Duan Lingtian finished his sentence in one breath. Duan Lingtian's words were approved by most of the people on the swift boat. They nodded in agreement. You. The two Yin-Yang sect elders originally wanted to discuss with Duan Lingtian to see if they could deal with this group of bandits together. However, they did not expect Duan Lingtian to say such a thing. They were so angry that their lungs were about to explode, although they did not think that Duan Lingtian's group was more powerful than them. However, since Duan Lingtian's group had the ability to destroy the gold-devouring organization, they might be able to suppress this group of bandits if they joined forces with them. What they did not expect was that Duan Lingtian would be so spineless. The bandit leader originally had a fearful expression as he looked at Duan Lingtian. At such a critical moment, the two Yin-Yang sect elders had their eyes on him. He must not be a simple person. However, when he heard Duan Lingtian's words, he could not help but laugh out loud. Haha, this little brother is really tactful. As the saying goes, a wise man submits to circumstances. Both elders should learn from this little brother. When the bandit leader reached the end of his sentence, he stared at the two Yin-Yang sect elders deeply. The two of them were so angry that they wanted to vomit blood. Since I'm so tactful, shouldn't you give us a discount? For example, how about 50 high-grade origin stones less? Duan Lingtian looked at the bandit leader and asked with a smile, "How dare you?" At once, many of the bandits' faces changed as they shouted angrily, "Boy, how dare you bargain with our leader? Are you tired of living?" Just when the group of bandits was getting agitated, the bandit leader raised his hand and silenced them. Interesting. The bandit leader and Duan Lingtian looked at each other for a while. The smile that had disappeared from his face reappeared again. Then, I'll give you face and charge you 50 high-grade origin stones less. Thank you. Chapter 11:31. Although the Yin-Yang sect elders were so angry that their lungs were about to explode, they had no choice but to hand over 950 high-grade origin stones obediently. Elders, I'm looking forward to our next meeting. After the bandit leader received the high-grade origin stones, he looked at the two Yin-Yang sect elders with a smile on his face. He looked extremely friendly as if he was a friend of the latter. Hearing the bandit leader's words, the two Yin-Yang sect elders were so angry that they gritted their teeth. Their faces were flushed, and their chests rose and fell like bellows. They could not calm down for a long time. Young man, farewell. Following that, the bandit leader glanced at Duan Lingtian, who closed his eyes and ignored the surroundings. After that, he led the group of bandits back to their small swift boat and flew away. At the same time, the Yin-Yang sect's swift boat regained its peace. Apart from Duan Lingtian, who sat there with his eyes closed, and Feng Tianwu, who sat quietly beside Duan Lingtian, the rest of the people present, including Xiong Quan, could not help but heave a sigh of relief. The atmosphere just now was so oppressive that they could barely breathe. Now, the rain was finally over. Young master, can you tell what the cultivation base of those bandits are? Xiong Quan asked softly as he looked at Duan Lingtian. In his eyes, his young master had a unique vision. He could often accurately see through a person's cultivation base. With their strength, if Tian Wu and I did not make a move, we would definitely lose even if you helped those two old men. Duan Lingtian answered Xiong Quan sideways. Then, Xiong Quan was puzzled. Before he could finish his sentence, he was interrupted by Duan Lingtian. You want to ask me why I didn't make a move, right?
Yes.
Xiong Quan nodded. Since they can solve the problem with origin stones, why should I make a move? Don't tell me that I can still earn those 1,000 high-grade origin stones if I make a move? Duan Lingtian rolled his eyes at Xiong Quan when he reached the end of his sentence. Xiong Quan was stunned when he heard that. He had never thought that his young master would think this way. He immediately smiled bitterly to himself. Young master is young master. His thoughts are never something that I can understand. At this moment, the faces of the two Yin-Yang sect elders were still as gloomy as ever. One of them went back to the front of the swift boat and started it up. Whoosh! The flying boat broke through the air and continued its journey. I'm sure everyone saw what happened just now. At this moment, another Yin-Yang sect elder who was not controlling the swift boat looked around and said in a deep voice. As soon as the words left the Yin-Yang sect elder's mouth, many people's expressions changed. Don't tell me you want us to fork out the 950 high-grade primordial stones? Soon, someone guessed with an ugly expression. Wouldn't it be too ridiculous for us to contribute? It's obvious that they don't have the ability to protect us, which is why they have to pay the toll fee to the bandits. Many people looked dissatisfied and angry. If there was anyone present who was relatively calm, it would be Duan Lingtian. The faint indifference on Duan Lingtian's face made it seem as if he had expected this to happen. Hermph! The Yin-Yang sect elder snorted coldly. After his thunderous voice drowned out the noise in the swift boat, he said in a deep voice, "All of you are only paying the transportation fee for riding our Yin-Yang sect's swift boat to the inner land. What you just paid is the fee for your survival. If you don't pay, not only us, but all of you will die too. Who dares to deny this?" When the Yin-Yang sect elder reached the end of his sentence, there was a hint of anger in his tone. For a moment, the entire swift boat was silent. Although many people were still angry, they did not dare to say anything now for fear of angering the Yin-Yang sect elder in front of them. "Elder, how much does each of us have to pay?" someone asked, asking the question that was on everyone's mind. "I've calculated. There's a total of 73 people on the swift boat. Everyone just has to pay 15 high-grade primordial stones." The Yin-Yang sect elder said. 73 people? No one had to pay 15 high-grade primordial stones? For a moment, many people's expressions changed. If they really paid, not only would they pay the toll that they paid to the bandits earlier, but the Yin-Yang sect elder would also earn over 100 high-grade primordial stones. Many people wanted to say something, but they immediately noticed the Yin-Yang sect elder's sharp gaze that swept over them. Each and every one of them was like an eggplant that had been hit by frost, completely deflated. For a moment, the entire swift boat fell into a dead silence. "Elder, I don't have 15 high-grade primordial stones with me." A sudden voice broke the dead silence in the swift boat. It was a middle-aged man who said to the Yin-Yang sect elder helplessly, "You don't have 15 high-grade primordial stones? Are you sure?" The Yin-Yang sect elder's face turned grave. His eyes gleamed coldly as he asked sternly, "Elder, I really don't have that many high-grade primordial stones. If you don't believe me, I can remove the ownership of the spatial ring and show you." As the middle-aged man spoke, he was about to take off the spatial ring on his finger. "There's no need." The Yin-Yang sect elder opened his mouth to stop him. "There's no need?" The middle-aged man's eyes lit up. He thought the Yin-Yang sect elder pitied him and did not intend to take his share of high-grade primordial stones. However, was there such a good thing in the world? The answer was no. Just when he was about to express his gratitude, he saw a flash in front of his eyes. Another person appeared in front of him. When he took a closer look, was that not the Yin-Yang sect elder? Before he could react, he felt a heart-wrenching pain coming from his lower abdomen. It was so painful that he did not even have the time to scream before he completely lost consciousness. Bang! At the same time, a loud sound reverberated in the air, causing the group of people in the swift boat to look over. The scene before their eyes caused horror to appear on their faces. They saw the Yin-Yang sect elder casually destroying the middle-aged man's dantian with a punch. When the middle-aged man fainted from the pain, he grabbed his arm and threw him out of the swift boat. When the middle-aged man was thrown out of the swift boat, he was instantly awakened by the piercing wind. When he realized what was going on, he was already falling toward the surface of the Ruo Shui River. All the people in the swift boat heard was a short-lived scream that came to an abrupt end. At once, the swift boat fell into a dead silence again. Cold sweat broke out on many people's foreheads. What a good move. Duan Lingtian narrowed his eyes and looked at the Yin-Yang sect elder, who threw the middle-aged man out of the swift boat with interest. He could tell that the Yin-Yang sect elder did it on purpose. His ulterior motive was not in the wine. As expected, after the Yin-Yang sect elder's deterrence, the remaining people completely lost their temper. One by one, they handed over the high-grade origin stones obediently. After a while, only Duan Lingtian's group of 3 and the old man who was sitting opposite Duan Lingtian and the other 2 had not handed over their origin stones. Seeing the Yin Yang sect elder walking over, the old man hurriedly took out 15 high-grade origin stones and was about to hand them over. Wait a minute. At this moment, Duan Lingtian opened his mouth to stop the old man. Huh. The old man looked at Duan Lingtian with a puzzled expression. He did not know what Duan Lingtian was trying to do. Elder, I saved 50 high-grade origin stones for you earlier. The 4 of us shouldn't have to hand it over, right? Duan Lingtian asked as he looked deeply at the Yin Yang sect elder. Whoosh! The moment Duan Lingtian's words left his mouth, before the Yin Yang sect elder could respond, the people on the swift boat burst into an uproar. He bargained with the bandit leader just now, so that he doesn't have to hand over the high-grade origin stones now? He already guessed that the Yin Yang sect elder would ask us to hand over the high-grade origin stones? What a terrifying person. At that time, he still has the time to think about these things. Many people sucked in a cold breath. Faced with Duan Lingtian's question, the Yin Yang sect elder ignored it as though he did not hear him at all. He continued to look at the man. Are you sure you don't want to hand it over? I'll hand it over. I'll hand it over. Seeing the cold gleam in the Yin Yang sect elder's eyes, the old man panicked. He hurriedly handed over the 15 high-grade origin stones in his hand. It was only when the old man handed over the origin stones that Duan Lingtian finally regained his senses. His face darkened. He did not expect this Yin Yang sect elder to be so greedy. He had already said so much, but he still wanted to force the old man to hand over the high-grade origin stones. The 3 of you. 45 high-grade origin stones. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, the Yin Yang sect elder looked at Duan Lingtian and the other 2 again and said calmly. Although his tone was calm, there was an unquestionable tone in his voice. 45 high-grade origin stones? Duan Lingtian looked at the Yin Yang sect elder who was just inches away from him and sneered. Is there something wrong with your ears? I've already said that I've already saved you 50 high-grade origin stones. That's a separate matter. Now, everyone has handed it over except for the 3 of you? Do you think that's possible? The Yin Yang sect elder sneered as well. A terrifying gleam flashed in the depth of his eyes. It was as though he would attack Duan Lingtian and the other 2 at any moment. That was exactly what he had in mind. He had long wanted to kill the 3 people in front of him and snatch the wealth left behind by the gold-devouring organization. It was just that he could not find an opportunity or an excuse to do so. After all, if he had killed the 3 of them earlier, it would undoubtedly be telling everyone that the Yin Yang sect was intentionally condoning the gold-devouring organization scams. If that was the case, the Yin Yang sect's image and reputation would definitely be destroyed. However, it was different now. He had found an opportunity and an excuse. Right now, he could not wait for the 3 of them to refuse to hand over the 45 high-grade origin stones. In that case, he would have an excuse to kill the 3 of them and throw them out of the swift boat. Don't be too greedy as a person. You must know when to stop. Duan Lingtian narrowed his eyes. A cold gleam flashed across his eyes. He deliberately lowered his voice, and it was obvious that he was enraged. Refused to hand it over? The Yin Yang sect elder laughed. He laughed wantonly. He had finally found his chance. Just when the Yin Yang sect elder standing in front of Duan Lingtian was about to kill Duan Lingtian and snatch the spatial ring in his hand before throwing Duan Lingtian out of the swift boat. Damn it. Chapter 1132. Bandits? At once, the entire swift boat fell into a state of panic again. Is it the group of bandits that just left and returned? Someone asked immediately. It's another group of bandits. The Yin Yang sect elder standing at the front of the swift boat said with a grave expression. Another group of bandits? At once, the expressions of the people on the swift boat changed drastically. They felt that they were really unlucky. How long had it been? To encounter 2 groups of bandits consecutively? Consider yourself lucky. The other Yin Yang sect elder who was looking at Duan Lingtian glared at Duan Lingtian fiercely before he turned around and approached the other Yin-Yang sect elder at the front of the swift boat. Right now, he did not have the time to be calculative with Duan Lingtian. From the beginning until the end, Duan Lingtian's face was calm. He did not panic because of the Yin-Yang sect elder's anger at all. Neither did he panic because of the group of bandits that had just arrived. Little brother, if we can survive this time, you better hand over your upper-grade origin stones. At this moment, the old man nearby looked at Duan Lingtian and sighed. We can't afford to offend the Yin-Yang sect people. There's no need to lose your life just because of a moment of anger. Senior, no matter when, I'll never agree to an unreasonable request. Duan Lingtian grinned and said nonchalantly, You. The old man was speechless. At that moment, he could only think to himself, the newborn calf is not afraid of the tiger. This group of bandits only have 4 small swift boats? Xiong Quan's voice resonated at the right time. His gaze landed in front of him, and he saw the 4 small swift boats that were flying towards them rapidly. At this moment, many people saw them as well. Only 4 small swift boats? Looks like it's a small group of bandits. They don't even have as many people as the group of bandits just now. Such a small group. The 2 Yin-Yang sect elders should be able to deal with it, right? Many people discussed among themselves. Their words were filled with contempt for the bandits in the 4 small swift boats. However, many people, including Duan Lingtian and the 2 Yin-Yang sect elders, did not think so. In their opinion, if there was a powerful bandit among the bandits, even if there was only a small flying boat, it would be enough to destroy them easily. On Cloud Continent, the strong were respected, and the competition between martial artists didn't rely on numbers to obtain victory. For example, if 10 void transformation martial artists were to encounter a martial emperor, the latter would be able to slaughter the former in a few breaths. They were both martial artists at the void transformation stage. An expert at the peak of the emptiness realm could also easily reap the lives of many low-level emptiness transformation realm martial artists. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. A moment later, 4 small flying boats arrived and surrounded the Yin-Yang sect's flying boat, one in the front and one in the back, one on the left and one on the right. At the same time, the Yin-Yang sect's swift boat stopped as well. Although the group of bandits didn't request for the Yin-Yang sect's flying boat to stop, they still didn't dare to do so. However, given the current situation, it was useless even if the flying boat didn't stop. Once the enemy attacked the flying boat, everyone on the flying boat would still have to stay. He might as well be tactful and take the initiative to stop. That way, he could prevent the flying boat from being destroyed. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Just as the flying boat came to a stop, a series of wind whistling sound resonated. Before most people could react, 4 figures appeared out of thin air above the flying boat. An old man in a golden robe stood at the front of the flying boat. The old man stood in the air as though he was one with heaven and earth, giving off an invisible pressure. On both sides of the flying boat, there was a silver-robed old man standing in the air. The 2 silver-robed old men had one thing in common. They looked exactly the same. They were a pair of twin brothers. Just by standing there, they gave off an oppressive feeling as well. Although it was not as oppressive as the golden-robed old man, it was not far off. A middle-aged man in a copper robe stood at the back of the flying boat. The middle-aged man's gaze swept across the flying boat and finally landed on a red figure. What a beautiful woman! Naturally, the person he had his eyes on was Feng Tianwu. Feng Tianwu's peerless beauty was enough to topple a nation. It was enough to make any man's heart flutter. In an instant, greed and lust rose in the eyes of the middle-aged man in the copper robe. A wicked smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Brothers, from today onward, all of you have a sister-in-law. The middle-aged man in the copper robe spoke, breaking the silent and solemn atmosphere on the flying boat. At this moment, in the eyes of the middle-aged man in the copper robe, it seemed as though only Feng Tianwu and his other 3 companions were left in the world. As for the others, he chose to ignore them. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. For a moment, the golden-robed old man and the other 2 silver-robed old men followed the middle-aged man's gaze and landed on Feng Tianwu. 3 pairs of eyes lit up at the same time. What a peerless beauty! The golden-robed old man praised. Such a beauty is indeed worthy of our fourth brother, one of the silver-robed old men said. I can't believe there's such a beauty in the yin-yang sect's flying boat. Fourth brother, you're really lucky this time. The other silver-robed old man laughed. Ha ha! Upon hearing the three old men's words, the middle-aged man in the copper robe laughed proudly. However, at this moment, he did not notice. Beside the red-clothed woman he had taken a fancy to, the purple-clothed youth looked at him with narrowed eyes that were filled with dense killing intent. Seeing that someone dared to profane his young master's woman, his future young mistress, Xiong Quan was instantly enraged. His sturdy body trembled, and he was about to explode. I'll kill him. A cold voice entered Xiong Quan's ears and stopped him. At the same time, Feng Tianwu stood up. Her red robe fluttered even though there was no wind. It was like a ball of fire that was burning fiercely. As it burned, it rose into the air and emitted a scorching aura. The aura rolled and turned into a scorching airwave that set off a scorching wind. It made everyone on the flying boat feel as though they were in a volcano. Haha, fourth brother, it seems like your future wife has a bad temper. She's not that easy to control. One of the silver-robed old men teased. If she's easy to control, what's the difference between her and those ordinary women? I like this kind of woman. She's so tasty. The copper-robed middle-aged man stuck out his tongue and licked his dry lips. When he looked at Feng Tianwu again, his eyes shone even brighter. At the same time, the copper robe on his body began to flutter. You're the 4 southern river bandits. Just when Feng Tianwu and the copper-robed middle-aged man were about to break out into a fight, an exclamation resonated in the air and attracted everyone's attention. The person who exclaimed was one of the 2 yin-yang sect elders. Horror dawned on his face as he looked at the golden-robed old man in front of him as though he had just seen a ghost. S4 Southern River Bandits? At the same time, the other yin-yang sect elder's face changed completely as well. There was even a hint of despair in his eyes. 4 Southern River Bandits? What's that? Why do the 2 yin-yang sect elders have such a big reaction? I've never heard of them before. However, they must be very powerful. Otherwise, the 2 yin-yang sect elders wouldn't have lost their composure like this. That's right. Even when they were facing the group of bandits earlier, the 2 yin-yang sect elders didn't react like this. It seems like these 4 bandits are even more powerful than the group of bandits earlier. Then, what should we do? Upon seeing the 2 yin-yang sect elders' expressions, horror dawned on the people on the swift boat. Despair began to spread among them and was out of control. The 4 Southern River Bandits. Don't tell me it's them? Suddenly, a middle-aged man seemed to have recalled something as horror dawned on his face. What? You've heard of them? At once, many people looked at the middle-aged man. If they're really the 4 Southern River Bandits, then none of us will be able to survive today. The middle-aged man's face turned grave as he muttered, the 4 Southern River Bandits are the top bandit groups in the south of Ruo Shui River. Among them, Gold Bandit is a 6th-level martial monarch powerhouse. The 2 Silver Bandit are at the 5th-level martial monarch stage and the 4th-level martial monarch stage. Even the weakest one, Copper Bandit, is at the 3rd-level martial monarch stage. When the middle-aged man reached the end of his sentence, his body began to tremble violently out of fear. Gold Bandit, Silver Bandit, Copper Bandit. The people on the swift boat glanced at the golden-robed old man, the silver-robed old man, and the copper-robed middle-aged man with horror in their eyes. You must be the yin-yang sect elders, right? Consider yourself unlucky to have encountered us, the 4 bandits. The golden-robed old man was none other than Gold Bandit. He glanced at the 2 yin-yang sect elders indifferently. Whoosh, whoosh. When the 2 yin-yang sect elders saw Gold Bandit looking at them and saying such words, horror dawned on them immediately. One of the yin-yang sect elders said in horror, Senior Gold Bandit, today is your brother's good day. Please show mercy. We're willing to hand over all of our origin stones. Good day? Gold Bandit was stunned. That's right. Didn't your brother take a fancy to that girl? She is a rare beauty, and for your younger brother to be able to marry her, it is truly the good fortune of 3 lifetimes. the other Yin-Yang sect elder said in a panic. When he reached this point, he glanced at the red-clad girl who was confronting the copper-robed middle-aged man, Copper Bandit. The red-clad girl was none other than Feng Tianwu. Upon hearing the Yin-Yang sect elder's words, Feng Tianwu's cold face was covered with a layer of frost once again. She exuded an icy aura that repelled people thousands of miles away. Her pair of autumn eyes gleamed with a cold gleam, as though she was about to devour someone. Duan Lingtian's face turned grave. His extremely cold eyes stared at the two Yin-Yang sect elders, as though he was looking at two dead men. Unknowingly, he had already clenched his fists. At this moment, many people on the swift boat looked at the two Yin-Yang sect elders with disdain. They did not expect this at all. In order to survive, these two Yin-Yang sect elders would actually use a girl as a shield. Of course, there were also many people who looked at Gold Bandit anxiously, hoping that he would let them go. Do you mean that my fourth brother doesn't deserve her? Chapter 11:33. No, of course not. When the Yin-Yang sect elder saw Gold Thug's piercing gaze sweeping towards him, horror dawned on his face as he hurriedly shook his head. Unfortunately, it was too late for him to express his opinion. Whoosh! Gold Thug disappeared from where he was and appeared in front of him when he reappeared. Boom! A gush of vast energy gushed out of Gold Thug's body like a tidal wave. It drowned the Yin-Yang sect elder before he could even react. At once, the Yin-Yang sect elder did not even have the time to scream before he was completely obliterated and turned into dust. All that was left was a spatial ring that slowly fell from the sky. A fourth-level martial monarch stage martial artist was instantly killed. This was the strength of a sixth-level martial monarch stage martial artist. Upon seeing this scene, everyone in the swift boat, other than Duan Lingtian, Feng Tianwu, and the other three of the four southern river thugs, had a change of expression on their faces as fear filled their eyes. Especially the other Yin-Yang sect elder. When he saw Gold Thug killing his companion and grabbing his companion's spatial ring in his hand, he no longer dared to hesitate. Run! He moved his body and fled out of the swift boat immediately. However, would he be able to escape? Profundity aside, his origin energy as a fourth-level martial monarch stage martial artist was weaker than a sixth-level martial monarch stage martial artist by 2,000 ancient horn dragon strength. With such a difference in strength, how could he possibly escape from a sixth-level martial monarch stage martial artist? Boom! Without any suspense, the remaining Yin-Yang sect elder was instantly killed by Gold Thug as well. He followed in his companion's footsteps, and the spatial ring he left behind after his death was also in Gold Thug's hands. Run! Run! Seeing the two Yin-Yang sect elders being killed in just a blink of an eye, the remaining people turned pale and scattered in all directions. Although they were not sure if they could escape or not. However, they knew about it. If they did not escape, they would definitely die. As some of them left the swift boat and were swallowed by the powerful gravitational force of the Ruo Shui River, they lost all signs of life. The remaining people turned pale, and only then did they remember how terrifying the Ruo Shui River was. For a moment, the group of panicked people stayed obediently in the flying boat. They looked at the Gold Thug and the two Silver Thugs who were glaring at them in despair. Duan Lingtian and Xiong Quan were the only ones who did not make any movements in the airship. You are qualified to be my woman. Just as the atmosphere in the flying boat was somewhat silent, a voice sounded, attracting everyone's attention. It was Copper Fiend, one of the four devils of Hunan, talking to Feng Tianwu. However, what responded to him was Feng Tianwu's clean sword strike. Whoosh! The 5-foot-long red flexible sword was like a fiery red spirit snake. Raging crimson flames erupted from its body and transformed into a fire dragon. It bared its fangs and brandished its claws as it pounced towards Tong Sha. At the same time, wherever the fire dragon passed, there would be a series of ear-piercing explosions in the air. After the airflow in the air was compressed, it suddenly rebounded, gushing out waves of scorching air. For a moment, the people in the swift boat were swept away by the scorching hot wind again. However, none of them were in the mood to pay attention to this, let alone watch the battle between Feng Tianwu and Tong Sha. At this moment, they were looking at the gold thug and the two silver thugs in the distance anxiously. Their lives were now in the hands of these three people. If the three of them wanted to kill them, none of them would be able to escape. Don't worry, before my fourth brother tames his future wife, we won't attack any of you. We'd like you to be our fourth brother's witnesses. At this moment, the gold thug spoke. His voice was filled with joy. That's right. The two silver thugs nodded. Similar to the gold thug, their eyes were fixed on Tong Sha and Feng Tianwu who were fighting. It was hard to tell who had the upper hand in the battle. This sister-in-law is really amazing. She's only at the first level martial monarch stage, but she has already comprehended the powerful fire profundity and sword profundity. One of the silver thugs said in shock after watching for a while. She's only at the first level martial monarch stage, but she's able to mobilize the heaven and earth energy and gather it to form an ancient black dragon's energy. With such strength, she's most likely not human. The other silver thug said, "It doesn't matter if she's human or not, as long as fourth brother likes her." The gold thug said. While the gold thug and the two silver thugs were chatting casually, the people in the swift boat were suffering. However, when they realized that they would not die so soon, they followed the gold thug and the other two's gazes and looked at the man and woman who were fighting. The red-clad woman moved like a flame. Every time she moved, she seemed to vanish into thin air before their eyes. Whoosh! The sound of sword whistling that was short-lived resounded in their ears like thunder. The copper-robed middle-aged man held a pair of maces with both hands. When he moved, he waved the maces in the air like a gust of wind. As he waved the maces, it seemed to form an inescapable net that enveloped the red-clad woman. There was an ancient black dragon silhouette and thousands of ancient horned dragon silhouettes above their heads. How powerful! I didn't expect her to be so powerful. That's right. This woman is really amazing to be able to fight with Copper Thug and not be at a disadvantage. What a pity. Copper Thug is the weakest among the 4 Southern River thugs. Even if she can fight with him, she can't defeat the other 3 thugs and can't save us. The group of people who were originally praising Feng Tianwu were all like frosted eggplants at the end of their speech, completely dejected. Young master, can Miss Tianwu defeat him? Xiong Quan looked at the battle solemnly. As a first-level martial monarch stage martial artist, he could vaguely see the swift movements of the 2 figures. Of course she can. Duan Lingtian, who was also watching the battle, nodded with certainty. The copper-robed middle-aged man was Copper Thug. His cultivation base was at the 3rd-level martial monarch stage. When his origin energy exploded, it was equivalent to the strength of 4,000 ancient horned dragons. In addition to the Grade 1 spirit weapon in his hand, he could amplify the strength of 3,500 ancient horned dragons. Apart from that, he had also comprehended a 3rd-level monarch stage profundity and 2 9th-level void transformation concepts. The former was equivalent to the strength of 4,000 ancient horned dragons, while the latter was equivalent to the strength of 2,000 ancient horned dragons. Therefore, the strength contained in the 2 maces that he wielded was equivalent to the strength of an ancient black dragon and 3,500 ancient horned dragons. Tian Wu's cultivation base is at the 1st-level martial monarch stage. Her origin energy is equivalent to the strength of 2,000 ancient horned dragons. The quasi-royal grade spirit sword amplifies the strength of 2,000 ancient horned dragons. Coupled with the 4th-level monarch stage fire profundity and 4th-level monarch stage sword profundity that she comprehended, it's equivalent to the strength of an ancient black dragon. If she unleashes her full strength, she can unleash the strength of an ancient black dragon and 4,000 ancient horned dragons. Compared to Tong Sha, she's about 500 ancient horned dragons stronger. When everyone's attention was on Feng Tianwu and Tong Sha, Duan Lingtian saw the heaven and earth phenomenon above Tong Sha's head clearly. He could see it. The difference was only 500 ancient horned dragon strength. In addition, Tong Sha had comprehended the 3rd-level monarch stage water profundity which could subdue Tian Wu. It was difficult for Tian Wu to win in a head-on battle. She could only wait for an opportunity. An opportunity to kill in one strike. Therefore, she was fighting with Tong Sha on purpose. Haha, 4th brother. Don't tell me you can't even handle your future wife? Gold Thug laughed. That's right, fourth brother. If you can't handle my sister-in-law and need my help, just let me know. That's right. However, the most I can do is to help you now. On the wedding night, if you can't handle her, I won't be able to help even if I want to. The other two silver thugs teased. Tong Sha was so angry that his face flushed red. His attacks became even more ferocious, suppressing Feng Tianwu to the point that she seemed to be at a disadvantage. Duan Lingtian heard the three silver thugs' words clearly. It made Duan Lingtian's face turn even gloomier. Whoosh! In the end, he could no longer hold it in and stood up abruptly. His action startled Xiong Quan, causing him to stand up as well. Just when the origin energy in Duan Lingtian's body was rolling and was about to burst out, the sound of a sword suddenly rang out. Whoosh! A short-lived sword howl suddenly rang out. Compared to the previous sword howl, this one was even more condensed and swift. Fourth brother. At the same time, Duan Lingtian heard Gold Thug and the two silver thugs' sorrowful cries. Duan Lingtian looked over again. Feng Tianwu finally found an opportunity. She thrust her sword and sent it into Tong Sha's chest as if she was assisted by the gods. She flew past like a phoenix. In the next moment, Tong Sha's body was split into two and burned to ashes. Duan Lingtian's eyes lit up when he saw this. She killed Tong Sha? Everyone in the swift boat was stunned at first. Their faces were filled with disbelief, but soon, their expressions changed completely. Gold Thug and Silver Thug will never let her off for doing this. After everyone reacted, they looked at Feng Tianwu with pity in their eyes. In their opinion, Feng Tianwu was only slightly stronger than Tong Sha. It was impossible for her to be a match for any of the three strongest of the four Southern River thugs, not to mention facing all three of them at the same time. Just as they expected, Gold Thug and Silver Thug watched Tong Sha being killed. While they stood rooted to the ground, a raging milky white flame rose from their bodies. 3 pairs of eyes were dyed red in an instant. Terrifying killing intent flickered in their eyes, as if they were about to devour someone. Bitch, you killed my fourth brother. I want you to pay with your life. One of the silver thugs cried out in sorrow and charged toward Feng Tianwu. While he was still on his way, the heaven and earth phenomenon above his head underwent a drastic change. The 6,000 silhouettes of ancient horn dragons quickly disappeared and turned into an ancient black dragon silhouette and many other ancient horn dragons. As a narrow saber appeared in his hand, the heaven and earth phenomenon changed again. In the end, the silhouette of an ancient black dragon and over 7,000 ancient horn dragon silhouettes were formed. 4th level Martial Monarch Stage. 4th level Martial Monarch Stage Profundity. 2 9th level Void Transformation Concepts. A Grade 2 Spirit Saber. And this was the Silver Fiend who was relatively weak. Chapter 11:34. Buzz. A saber light that skyrocketed flashed out from Silver Fiend's hand, and it carried a might that could split a mountain. It emitted a clear and ear-piercing saber cry as it slashed down towards Feng Tianwu, who stood in the distance. Die! Just as the saber gleam was about to strike, the silver thug's eyes gleamed coldly as he roared. At that moment, many people in the swift boat closed their eyes. They all felt that Feng Tianwu was dead for sure, and they couldn't bear to see the scene of Feng Tianwu dying. However, they quickly opened their eyes again because they did not hear the sound of anything being slashed by the silver thug's saber. They were deeply puzzled about this. When they opened their eyes and saw the scene in front of them, they were all dumbfounded. Gosh, wasn't this a little too ridiculous? Under everyone's watchful eyes, a purple figure stood in front of the silver thug who had just attacked. He held the Grade 2 Spirit Saber firmly in one hand. At the same time, the saber gleam that was shot out from the Grade 2 Spirit Saber was suppressed until it retracted back into the Spirit Saber and dissipated. How? How is this possible? The silver thug was dumbfounded as he looked at the young man in purple, who grabbed the Grade 2 Spirit Saber in his hand without any effort. In fact, he was not the only one who was dumbfounded. Other than Feng Tianwu and Xiong Quan, everyone in the swift boat, including the gold thug and the other silver thug, was dumbfounded. Feng Tianwu stood far away and looked at the purple figure with his back facing her. Her eyes flashed with gentleness. Every time she was in danger, he would appear. As long as he was around, she would feel at ease. Third brother, be careful. Soon, the gold thug reacted. His expression changed drastically as his body moved like the wind and shot toward the purple figure standing in front of the silver thug. However, could he make it in time? Boom. The moment the gold thug made his move, Duan Lingtian shook his hand and shook the grade 2 spirit saber away from the silver thug's hand. He slammed his palm on the silver thug's chest. Fused Upanishad. At the same time, a 5-colored energy surged out of Duan Lingtian's hand and landed on the silver thug's body like crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. It shattered the silver thug's internal organs and sent him flying. Silver thug was sent flying in the direction where gold thug was rushing towards. He was caught by gold thug, who had an ugly expression on his face. Third brother. Third brother. Gold thug stared at silver thug, who was no longer breathing in his arms. His eyes were about to pop out of his head. Ah! At this moment, the other silver fiend let out a cry of grief. The death of his twin brother was like a knife that cut into his heart, causing him to feel a heart-wrenching pain. Boom! When silver thug, whose forehead was drenched in cold sweat and whose eyes were bloodshot, finally regained his senses, the milky white flame that was transformed from his origin energy suddenly surged out of his body. His profundity and concept followed like a shadow. Subsequently, his entire body flashed out like a cannonball that had left the barrel as he swiftly shot towards Duan Lingtian. Wang. Just like his twin brother, he used a saber as well. It was a grade 2 spirit saber. Due to his twin brother's death, he had completely lost his mind. He did not even think about whether he could kill Duan Lingtian with his ability. There was only one thought left in his mind. He had to kill this purple-clad young man to avenge his brother. Second brother. When Gold Thug snapped out of his grief, he saw his second brother attacking the purple-clad young man. Horror dawned on his face immediately. Whoosh! Without any hesitation, Gold Thug moved at an extreme speed and charged towards his second brother, intending to save him. Boom! Finally, the saber in Silver Thug's hand landed on Duan Lingtian's body. As a 5th-level martial monarch, his ability was much more powerful than his twin brother. He could exert the strength of 2 ancient black dragons with all his might. Wang. The saber that contained the strength of 2 ancient black dragons was earth-shattering as soon as it landed. At this moment, everyone in the swift boat could feel the sharp saber chi that was charging towards them. They could not help but shudder. Of course, only a handful of people in the swift boat could see Silver Thug's movements clearly. Feng Tianwu and Stone Quan could barely see him clearly. However, when they saw that Duan Lingtian did not dodge Silver Thug's saber, they could not help but feel anxious. Although they had seen Duan Lingtian take the attack of the Gold-Devouring Organization's leader head-on previously, they could not help but feel anxious. However, when the strength of the Gold-Devouring Organization's leader was compared to that of the Silver Demon, the difference was like heaven and earth. They were simply not on the same level. Silver Thug's saber contained the strength of 2 ancient black dragons. Two silhouettes of ancient black dragons? In the blink of an eye, some sharp-eyed people saw the heaven and earth phenomenon that appeared above Silver Thug's head. Their eyes narrowed and their faces were filled with shock. Whoosh! Soon, Feng Tianwu and Xiong Quan sighed in relief. This was because they clearly saw that when Silver Thug's saber was about to hit Duan Lingtian disappeared into thin air. Dragon soaring 9 heavens. When he felt the swift and fierce saber chi that assaulted his face, Duan Lingtian executed his movement technique at the first possible moment, and his entire body seemed to have transformed into an agile divine dragon that flashed as he moved. Other than dodging to the side, he also made a turn and went behind Silver Thug. Boom! Another casual slap took Silver Thug's life. At this point, 3 of Hunan's 4 thugs were dead. Only Gold Thug was left. Who exactly are you? Gold Thug, who did not manage to save Silver Thug in time, stopped halfway and asked Duan Lingtian with a gloomy expression. However, Duan Lingtian only responded with one action. With a shake of his hand, a sword appeared in his hand out of thin air. It was a sword that exuded a terrifying aura. It was his quasi-royal grade spirit sword. I don't care who you are. I'll kill you today to avenge my 3 brothers. Gold Thug's face turned even more gloomy when he saw that Duan Lingtian was ignoring him. A sword appeared in his hand as well. It was a sword with flowing light revolving around it. A grade 1 spirit sword? Duan Lingtian was slightly surprised when he saw the sword in Gold Thug's hand. However, he was no exception. No matter what, Gold Thug was still a 6th-level martial monarch. It would be too shabby if he did not even have a grade 1 spirit weapon. You want to avenge your brothers? Let's see if you're capable of doing so. This time, Duan Lingtian finally responded to Gold Thug. If one observed closely, one could see that there was an unusual excitement in the depth of his eyes. Ever since he possessed this strength, Duan Lingtian had never fought with all his might. This was because the opponents he had encountered in the past were all martial artists who were weaker than him. The Gold Thug before him was a 6th-level martial monarch. He was the most powerful opponent he had ever encountered in his life. In terms of strength, he was on par with him. If he did not use all his strength, it was almost impossible for him to defeat Gold Thug. Because of this, he was very excited. This was because he could finally fight with all his might. The moment he thought of this, his blood began to boil. I'll show you soon. Gold Thug was not afraid in the face of Duan Lingtian's provocation. The golden robe on his body fluttered, and the milky white flames on his body rapidly changed as well. In the swift boat, the people who were initially in despair felt hopeful when they saw Duan Lingtian killing the 2 silver thugs one after another. The hope of survival. If there was a chance to survive, who would not want to live a good life? At this moment, all of them secretly wished that this mysterious purple-clad young man would be able to kill Gold Thug and save them from the sea of fire. He's actually so powerful? No wonder he dares to go against the Yin-Yang sect's elders. The old man who was sitting near Duan Lingtian, the old man who had kindly warned Duan Lingtian at the Ruoshui riverside, was now staring at the purple figure who was standing in the air in a confrontation with Gold Thug. He was dumbstruck. Young master. Xiong Quan looked at Duan Lingtian in excitement. He clenched his fists tightly. As for Feng Tianwu, she stood quietly at the side. Her eyes were filled with tenderness as she looked at Duan Lingtian. The frost on her beautiful face had also melted a little. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Gold Thug, who had already prepared himself, disappeared into thin air before their eyes in just a blink of an eye. It was as if he had never appeared. Boom, 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 boom. However, the continuous sound of air exploding, as well as the gusts of wind blowing in their faces, seemed to be telling them, what's going on? Gold Thug did not disappear. Instead, his speed was too fast for their naked eyes to capture. Before they could wrap their heads around it, they realized that the other purple figure had also disappeared into thin air before their eyes. Boom, boom, boom. At the same time, the heaven and earth energy in the sky began to stir and gather continuously. The heaven and earth phenomenon was about to take shape. The crowd's eyes were filled with anticipation. Whoosh, whoosh. One after another, 2 short-lived sword whistles sounded almost at the same time. Then, they stopped abruptly. Smack, smack. 2 soft sounds were heard. The front and back of the swift boat were sliced off by the extremely fast sword gleams. Fortunately, the key parts of the swift boat were not damaged. Otherwise, the swift boat would not be able to continue floating. It might even fall into the Ruoshui riverside and turn into ashes. In the crowd's eyes, the purple figure and the gold figure appeared and disappeared before their eyes in the next moment. Their speed was so fast that it made them tremble with fear. He's actually evenly matched with Gold Thug. Is he a level 6 martial monarch powerhouse as well? Many people were dumbfounded. Soon after, they lifted their heads and looked at the heaven and earth phenomenon that was gathering in the sky. The heaven and earth phenomenon was formed separately. It belonged to Duan Lingtian and Gold Thug, respectively. Gold Thugs appeared first. When he attacked, He activated the heaven and earth energy and gathered 2 ancient black dragons silhouettes and 5,000 ancient horn dragon silhouettes. In other words, he could unleash the strength of 2 ancient black dragons and 5,000 ancient horn dragons with his full strength. He was at the 6th level martial monarch stage and possessed a grade 1 spirit sword. Regardless of the profundity that he had comprehended, he could unleash the strength of 1 ancient black dragon and 5,000 ancient horn dragons. A 6th level martial monarch stage martial artist's origin energy was equivalent to the strength of 8,000 ancient horn dragons. Chapter 11:35. Apart from that, Gold Thug had also comprehended 2 profundities and 1 concept. 6th level monarch stage profundity, 1st level monarch stage profundity, and 9th level void transformation concept. The former was equivalent to the strength of 7,000 ancient horn dragons, while the latter was equivalent to the strength of 2,000 ancient horn dragons and 1,000 ancient horn dragons respectively. Together with his origin energy and spirit weapon, Gold Thug could unleash the strength of 2 ancient black dragons and 5,000 ancient horn dragons if he unleashed his full strength. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. The sound of swords whistling could be heard above the swift boat. The purple and golden silhouettes that appeared from time to time subconsciously shifted the battle to the sky. His strength is even more powerful than Gold Thug's. At this moment, an exclamation was heard. The people in the swift boat looked at the sky and realized that the heaven and earth phenomenon that appeared later was the silhouettes of 2 ancient black dragons and 6,000 ancient horn dragons. This was the strength of the purple-clad young man who was fighting Gold Thug, Duan Lingtian. 1st level fused profundity was equivalent to the strength of 20,000 ancient black dragons. 2nd level martial monarch stage origin energy was equivalent to the strength of 3,000 ancient horn dragons. With the boost from the quasi-royal grade spirit sword, it increased to the strength of 6,000 ancient horn dragons. His strength is 1,000 ancient horn dragons more powerful than Gold Thug, but he doesn't seem to have the upper hand. Very soon, many people noticed this. Gold Thug is the leader of Hunan's 4 thugs. He's been through more than 10,000 battles in his life. His battle experience and techniques have reached the point of perfection. Some of the more experienced people mumbled, "Even so, isn't this too much? That's a difference of 1,000 ancient horn dragon strength. How can he just ignore it?" Many people were shocked. In their opinion, this was just too unbelievable. Young master doesn't seem to be using his full strength. Xiong Quan mumbled as he watched the 2 silhouettes that kept crossing each other.
Touchstone.
Feng Tianwu also opened her mouth slightly, which was rare for her. It was just like what Feng Tianwu had said. Duan Lingtian was using Gold Thug as his touchstone. Although he had killed a few martial emperors since he had obtained this power, those martial emperors were much weaker than him. It was difficult for them to fight against him. Today, Gold Thug's strength was enough to threaten him. Naturally, that was only if Duan Lingtian did not use the sword profundity. Until now, he had only used his origin energy, fused profundity, and the quasi-royal grade spirit sword in his hand. He had yet to use his 1st level monarch stage sword profundity. However, after a fierce battle, he also realized his own shortcomings. Gold Thug's combat experience and techniques were far superior to his. Gold Thug had cultivated every martial skill, be it a movement martial skill, an offensive martial skill, or a defensive martial skill, to perfection. According to Duan Lingtian's guess, these 3 martial skills ought to be high-grade heaven-rank martial skills. Defeating me by 1,000 ancient horn dragons and coming to a draw with me. Trash. Gold Thug said disdainfully after separating from Duan Lingtian again. His tone was filled with disdain and mockery. Although he said so, there was still a hint of dread in the depth of his eyes. Fortunately, his opponent's combat technique and experience were far inferior to his. Otherwise, the difference of 1,000 ancient horn dragon strength would be enough to doom him eternally. Is that so? Soon, a cold voice entered Gold Thug's ears. It was Duan Lingtian's voice. When Gold Thug turned around, he saw Duan Lingtian, shaking the quasi-royal grade spirit sword in his hand. He was about to perform a sword skill that he had never used before. What's going on? The moment Gold Thug saw Duan Lingtian raise his hand, he felt a chill rising from the bottom of his feet and rushing to his head. He had been wandering in the southern area of Ruo Shui River for many years and had developed a sharp instinct. This instinct had saved his life many times, so he had always believed in it. He held back earlier? Gold Thug's face turned grave. 9 Dragons' radiant flash. Finally, Duan Lingtian made his move. The quasi-royal grade spirit sword in his hand swept across the sky and instantly released 9 sword rays. The sword rays pierced through the sky and transformed into 9 lifelike divine dragons. The eyes of the 9 divine dragons flashed and 18 ultimate radiant flashes were shot out, aiming at Gold Thug's vital points. The 18 ultimate radiant flashes were enough to cover Gold Thug's vital points from head to toe. Whoosh! Gold Thug's expression changed. He was sure that his opponent had not used his full strength earlier. Without any hesitation, he immediately activated the origin energy in his body and performed a defensive martial skill. A defensive light shield rose from his body and enveloped him. Not only that, but the sword in his hand also swept out like the wind and pointed at the 18 ultimate radiant flashes that were flying toward him. As for his movement martial skill, he did not perform it. It was not that he did not want to perform it, but it was too late. The speed of the 18 ultimate radiant flashes had exceeded his range of dodging. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. The 18 ultimate radiant flashes swept toward Gold Thug like rain. Although Gold Thug blocked 12 of them, the remaining 6 penetrated his body. Naturally, Gold Thug blocked the ultimate radiant flashes that were aimed at his vital points. He was helpless and could only choose to let go of the remaining 6 ultimate radiant flashes that were aimed at his legs. In an instant, 3 bloody holes were left on each of his legs. Both of his legs were crippled just like that. Although this would not cause him to lose his life, nor would it affect his strength, he was still afraid. What if all 18 of his opponent's ultimate radiant flashes were aimed at his vital points the next time? Would he be lucky enough to survive? Amazing! What a powerful sword skill. So, he's been holding back all this while. I was wondering how he could be evenly matched with Gold Thug, since he has the strength of 1,000 ancient horn dragons. The people in the swift boat had a bright smile on their faces when they saw Gold Thug's legs were crippled in an instant. They knew. This time, they had escaped a calamity. So, he's so powerful. To think that I reminded him at the Ruo Shui riverside. It was unnecessary. The old man standing in the crowd sighed. Young master. A bright smile appeared on Xiongquan's face. Feng Tianwu stood there quietly, and a faint smile appeared on the corner of her mouth. Sir, I admit that I'm no match for you. You didn't lose anything today. Why don't we stop here, and I'll give you all the wealth that I've accumulated over the years. Gold Thug, whose legs were crippled, was extremely pale. He wanted to make peace with Duan Lingtian. Naturally, make peace was just a way to put it. At this moment, he was afraid. He was afraid of Duan Lingtian. He knew that if he continued, not only would he not be able to escape, but he would also be killed by Duan Lingtian's sword. Won't your wealth be mine if I kill you? Duan Lingtian smiled. It was a smile of disdain and mockery. The wealth in my spatial ring is only 1/10 of my total wealth. If you kill me, you'll lose a huge amount of wealth that I've stored elsewhere. Gold Thug said calmly, without any change in his expression when he heard Duan Lingtian's words. Is that so? The smile on Duan Lingtian's face grew brighter. This is my first time hearing that. A bloody bandit would store his wealth elsewhere. Don't tell me you don't have enough spatial rings? That shouldn't be the case, right? When Duan Lingtian reached the end of his sentence, he studied the Gold Thug with interest. His wise gaze seemed to be able to see through Gold Thug's heart. At this moment, Gold Thug could no longer maintain his composure. His expression turned extremely grave. Naturally, he did not store his wealth elsewhere. All of his wealth was stored in his storage ring because, in his opinion, that was the safest place for him to be. However, he did not expect this at all. He did not expect that there would be someone like the purple-clad young man in front of him on the swift boat that he thought he had the confidence to rob. His strength was so strong that he could barely breathe. Right now, his life was in his opponent's hands. Do you want to live? Just when Gold Thug was feeling disheartened and was wondering if he should sacrifice himself and fight to the death, a clear voice entered his ears. You're willing to let me go? Gold Thug shuddered when he heard the voice. He looked at Duan Lingtian excitedly. He could tell that the person who asked him was this purple-clad young man in front of him. Everyone was afraid of death, and he was no exception. Why would he be willing to die if he could live? I can let you go. Duan Lingtian studied Gold Thug from head to toe and nodded in all seriousness. Thank you, thank you. Gold Thug thanked him hurriedly. He forced a smile on his old face. It was a smile of surviving a disaster. You can thank me after you agree to my conditions. The corner of Duan Lingtian's mouth curled up into a smile. When Gold Thug saw the devilish smile, he felt goosebumps all over his body. At the same time, he felt anxious. That was right. Since the other party was willing to let him go, there must be a condition. At that moment, he made up his mind. No matter what the other party's conditions were, he would fulfill them even if he had to give up all the wealth he had plundered in his life. In his opinion, everything else was meaningless. Everything else was just floating clouds. Only life was the most important. As long as he was still alive, with his strength, he would be able to earn back all the wealth he had now. It was so quiet on the swift boat that the conversation between Duan Lingtian and Gold Thug was heard by everyone on the swift boat. Horror dawned on most of them. This purple-clad young man had the intention to let Gold Thug go? Was he not letting the tiger return to the mountain? Of course, no matter how many people wanted to stop the purple-clad young man, no one dared to make a sound. This was because they owed their lives to this purple-clad young man. They had no right to criticize him. Young master? Xiong Quan was confused. He had no idea what Duan Lingtian was trying to do. Feng Tianwu was the only one who remained calm. It was as if she could remain calm even if Mount Tai collapsed in front of her. She trusted Duan Lingtian unconditionally. What's the condition? Gold Thug took a deep breath and asked. I've prepared 2 conditions for you. You just have to agree to one of them, and I won't kill you. Chapter 1136. Be my dog. As soon as Duan Lingtian finished his sentence, the swift boat that was already extremely quiet fell into a dead silence again. Humiliation. Blatant humiliation. At that moment, many people on the swift boat smiled. They realized that Duan Lingtian was only doing this to humiliate Gold Thug. He had no intention of letting Gold Thug go. In their opinion, Gold Thug, a 6th-level martial monarch, had his own dignity. He would rather die than agree to such a ridiculous request. Gold Thug, who was anticipating Duan Lingtian's 2 conditions, was shocked when he heard Duan Lingtian's first condition. Be his dog? At that moment, Gold Thug felt rage rushing to his head, causing his breathing to quicken. The origin energy in his body was on the verge of exploding. What? You don't want to agree to the first condition? Duan Lingtian asked calmly. His expression did not change as he faced Gold Thug, who was enraged. Duan Lingtian's words were like a bucket of cold water that was splashed on Gold Thug's head. It temporarily extinguished his rage. What's the second condition? After Duan Lingtian's reminder, Gold Thug recalled that the purple-clad young man wanted him to agree to one of the 2 conditions. As long as he agreed to one of them, he would be allowed to live. He could not agree to the first condition. He might be able to agree to the second condition. At the same time, everyone on the swift boat had their eyes on Duan Lingtian. Many of them looked anxious. They only hoped that Duan Lingtian's second condition would be as ridiculous as the first condition. That was the only way Gold Thug would not agree to it. If Gold Thug did not agree to it, he would die. They would only be at ease if Gold Thug died. The second condition, Duan Lingtian looked at Gold Thug calmly and spoke slowly. He paused when he reached this point, causing everyone, including Gold Thug, to quicken their breathing. Destroy your dantian. Duan Lingtian enunciated each word clearly as everyone watched. Destroy his own dantian. Duan Lingtian's words were like a clap of thunder, causing everyone to be stunned. After realizing this, most of the people on the flying boat laughed. In their opinion, the purple-clad young man had no intention of letting Gold Thug live. Otherwise, he would not have made such harsh demands. If Gold Thug agreed to either of the two conditions, he would suffer a fate worse than death. Upon hearing Duan Lingtian's second condition, Gold Thug's expression darkened. Due to his anger, the primary energy in his body began to leak out of his body and turned into a milky white flame. You never intended to let me go. Gold Thug gritted his teeth and glared at Duan Lingtian. If he agreed to the first condition, he would no longer have any dignity to speak of. He would rather die than live. As for the second condition, if he agreed to it, he would lose his cultivation and suffer a fate worse than death. Furthermore, once his dantian was crippled, he would not be able to leave the airship in the face of a group of people who were eyeing him covetously. At that time, only death would await him. Look at what you're saying. I've already stated my conditions. As long as you agree to one of them, I won't kill you. Duan Lingtian shook his head and clicked his tongue as he spoke. What's the difference between the two conditions you've stated and killing me? Gold Thug was furious. At the very least, the first condition will ensure that you don't die. As for the second condition, I can guarantee that you won't die in my hands. Duan Lingtian smiled faintly. Upon hearing this, Gold Thug's body trembled and his expression darkened. Soon, he fixed his gaze on a figure from the corner of his eye. It was a fiery red figure. He began to roar in his heart, even if I die, I'll drag someone down with me. The person that Gold Thug had his eyes on was, of course, Feng Tianwu. I advise you not to think about dying together. You don't have the right to do so. Almost as soon as Gold Thug made his move, Duan Lingtian's voice was heard. The surging primary energy in Gold Thug's body began to show signs of calming down. Boom. At that moment, a gush of energy gushed out of Duan Lingtian's body. It was a vast and surging energy. First, his primary energy rose and transformed into a milky white flame. Subsequently, the milky white flame transformed into a five-colored flame. The moment the five-colored flame appeared, it sent chills down everyone's spines. Whoosh! At the same time, the heaven and earth energy stirred above Duan Lingtian's head and soon, the heaven and earth phenomenon formed. As Duan Lingtian's energy surged into the quasi-royal grade spirit sword in his hand, the heaven and earth phenomenon finally formed. It condensed into 2 ancient black dragon silhouettes and 6,000 ancient horn dragon silhouettes. This scene was not unfamiliar to the people present. However, apart from Duan Lingtian, Feng Tianwu, and Xiong Quan, everyone, including Gold Thug, narrowed their eyes in shock and disbelief. Oh God, what did they just see? The heaven and earth energy stirred above Duan Lingtian's head again, and another 2,000 ancient horn dragon silhouettes appeared. At the same time, the five-colored flame on Duan Lingtian's body was instantly compressed into the shape of a sword. It emitted waves of sharp sword chi as if it could tear everything apart. First-level monarch stage sword profundity. Someone exclaimed. So, he was holding back when he fought Gold Thug earlier. He could unleash the strength of 2 ancient black dragons and 7,000 ancient horn dragons if he unleashed his full strength. If he used such strength to fight Gold Thug from the beginning, the difference of 3,000 ancient horn dragon strength would have been enough to kill Gold Thug in an instant without using any techniques. Indeed, the difference of 3,000 ancient horn dragon strength is too huge. It's beyond any techniques. The people on the swift boat discussed among themselves. The way they looked at Duan Lingtian changed again. They did not expect this at all. Duan Lingtian, who had displayed such powerful strength in the battle with Gold Thug earlier, had actually held back. Not only that, he had held back such powerful strength. You. Gold Thug's expression was extremely grave. He looked at Duan Lingtian in disbelief. You held back such powerful strength when you fought with me earlier? Don't even think about playing tricks with that little strength of yours. I'll give you one last chance. Do you choose the first condition or the second one? Or perhaps you'd rather die? Duan Lingtian stared at Gold Thug with a sharp gaze as he spoke calmly. His calm tone was filled with killing intent. I'll give you 10 breaths to think about it. If you don't respond after 10 breaths, I'll take it that you'd rather die. Duan Lingtian pressed further when he saw Gold Thug's face turning pale, and he did not respond for a long time. 10 breaths. Gold Thug's face turned ferocious as if he was suffering. Make him a dog? He really could not do that. Even if he could do it, would he be able to face his 3 brothers who had died? Should he destroy his own Dantian? Putting aside the fact that he could not bear the pain of losing his cultivation base, even if he could, he would be killed before he even left the swift boat after destroying his own Dantian. Many people in the swift boat were glaring at him like a tiger watching its prey. You have 5 more breaths. 5 breaths passed in the blink of an eye. Duan Lingtian reminded Gold Thug in a timely manner. Duan Lingtian's voice entered Gold Thug's ears like needles, causing his body to tremble even more. However, he still had not made up his mind. You have 3 more breaths. Another 2 breaths passed and Duan Lingtian's voice was heard again. This time, Duan Lingtian's voice was no different from a death knell when it entered Gold Thug's ears. It made his expression even more ferocious and terrifying. Now, there were only 2 paths before him. 2 paths. First, he could die with dignity and backbone. Second, he could become the purple-clad young man's dog. It was not that he had not thought of the former, but when he thought about how he was going to die like this, he was really unwilling. He had lived for more than half of his life. Only he knew how difficult it was for him to achieve his current cultivation base. How many hardships did he have to go through to achieve his current cultivation base? Moreover, he had an even greater goal. He wanted to break through to the 7th, 8th, and 9th level martial monarch stage. It was to the extent that he even wanted to become a martial emperor. Although it was extremely far away and impossible, it was still his goal, his ultimate goal. However, if he died just like that, he would not be able to achieve his goal, let alone Emperor Wu. It was impossible even for a 7th level martial monarch stage. Although the latter would allow him to live, he would completely lose his dignity. It was undoubtedly humiliating to make a 6th level martial monarch stage cultivator like him a dog. Even if he survived, he would not be able to lift his head up high in the future. He would rather die. Therefore, he was extremely conflicted. Duan Lingtian looked at the Gold Thug calmly. His eyes were cold. Initially, he planned to kill the Gold Thug directly and let him reunite with the 2 Silver Thugs and the Copper Thug who was killed by Tian Wu in the Netherworld. However, he thought about it again. The Gold Thug was a 6th level martial monarch stage cultivator after all. It would be a pity if he died just like that. Therefore, he wanted to subdue the Gold Thug. Of course, it was risky. Even if he could subdue the Gold Thug, he would be a double-edged sword. He could hurt himself at any time while hurting his enemy. Naturally, the hurt himself here did not mean that the Gold Thug would directly harm him or the people around him. He could use other things to avoid these risks. He was most worried that the Gold Thug would betray him even though he seemed to be subduing him on the surface. There's still 1 breath left, Duan Lingtian thought to himself. Another 2 breaths had passed. His eyes gleamed coldly as he reminded the Gold Thug again. If the Gold Thug still did not make a decision in this 1 breath, he would kill him at lightning speed to prevent future troubles. Although it was a pity, there was nothing to worry about. The moment Duan Lingtian's words left his mouth, everyone in the swift boat, including Feng Tianwu and Xiong Quan, shifted their attention to the Gold Thug without exception. They wanted to know what the Gold Thug would choose in the end. Would he choose to abandon his dignity? Chapter 11:37. I'll be your dog. Finally, the Gold Thug's ferocious old face calmed down. He seemed to have aged more than 10 years in an instant as he spoke weakly. Fwa. The Gold Thug's choice was beyond everyone's expectation, including Duan Lingtian. The Gold Thug actually chose to be his dog? He'd rather be a dog than die. It seems like the Gold Thug values his life more than his dignity. Even a martial monarch's dignity is as light as a feather in the face of life and death. Many people in the swift boat exclaimed. When Gold Thug heard the words of these people, His emotions fluctuated violently. A cold light flashed in his eyes. He could not help but want to slaughter all of these people. However, he did not do anything in the end. He was now a dog. He was the purple-clad young man's dog. His master had not spoken yet, so naturally, a dog like him could not simply bite people. If he made his master unhappy, he would have to bear the consequences. Obviously, when the gold thug made his choice, he already had the resolve to be his master, Duan Lingtian's dog. Come to think of it, I might have made the same choice if I were him. Soon, someone sighed again. I would have made the same choice if I were him. If I had a 6th-level martial monarch cultivation base, I wouldn't want to die as well. Dignity and whatnot are nothing compared to my life. That's right. I think so too. Many people praised the gold thug's choice. The gold thug's mood instantly improved. Are you sure you want to be my dog? Duan Lingtian asked as he stared deeply at the gold thug. Master. The gold thug bowed respectfully at Duan Lingtian, using his actions to answer Duan Lingtian's question. If that's the case, make a few oaths using the 9-9 heavenly tribulation. Duan Lingtian said calmly. He did not want to have a ticking time bomb by his side. Therefore, some restrictions were necessary to avoid a lot of risks. Gold Thug was not surprised to hear Duan Lingtian's request. If he were in Duan Lingtian's shoes, he would have made the same request. Then, Duan Lingtian asked Gold Thug to swear a few oaths using the 9-9 heavenly tribulation oath. They were not allowed to attack him or the people around him. Without his orders, they were not allowed to leave his side. They would only obey his orders as their master. Don't do anything that will harm his interests. Anyone who disobeyed would be killed by the lightning punishment. Young master, why don't you ask him to swear an oath that forbids him from being disloyal? If he harbors any disloyalty, he will ultimately be an ingrate and a yellow-eyed dog. Xiong Quan reminded from the side. As soon as Xiong Quan said that, Gold Thug's expression changed. That won't be necessary. Just as Gold Thug was about to say something, Duan Lingtian shook his head and said, it's impossible for him to not be disloyal now. If he were to make such an oath now, I'm afraid he would be killed by the lightning punishment in the blink of an eye. No matter what, Gold Thug was still at the 6th-level martial monarch stage. Although he had given up his dignity and was willing to be his dog, he would definitely be dissatisfied and disloyal. Without a certain amount of time, it would be difficult for him to change his mind. You're wise, master. Gold Thug looked at Duan Lingtian gratefully. You're not human? Suddenly, Duan Lingtian seemed to have noticed something. He raised his eyebrows and looked into Gold Thug's eyes. Gold Thug's eyes looked normal at first glance. However, upon closer inspection, one would notice that the veins in his eyes were very different from a human's. If one did not look closely, one would not have noticed it. As someone who had merged with the reincarnation Emperor Wu's 2 lifetimes worth of memories, Duan Lingtian had inherited the reincarnation Emperor Wu's eyesight and experience. It was easy for him to see that Gold Thug was not human. Didn't you see it earlier, master? Gold Thug was stunned. Huh. Duan Lingtian frowned. What do you mean? Didn't you see that I'm not human, master? Gold Thug smiled bitterly. Otherwise, why would you ask me to be your dog, master? What are you talking about? Duan Lingtian frowned. The confusion on his face deepened. He had no idea what Gold Thug was talking about. In fact, Duan Lingtian was not the only one who was confused. Everyone in the swift boat looked at Gold Thug in confusion. Like Duan Lingtian, they did not understand what Gold Thug was talking about earlier. This time, Gold Thug did not say anything. He used his actions to answer Duan Lingtian. Boom. A soft sound reverberated in the air. All the people saw was a dazzling golden light burst out from Gold Thug's body. It was like a scorching sun. Many of them could not help but squint their eyes. When the golden light dissipated, the scene in front of everyone's eyes caused them to be dumbfounded. No wonder he said that earlier. Did that purple-clad young man really not see through his background? He should have seen through it. Otherwise, why would he make such a request? I think he saw through it as well. Otherwise, why didn't he make Gold Thug his servant or follower? Why did he make Gold Thug his dog? The people in the swift boat whispered among themselves. Their faces were filled with shock. This, Duan Lingtian stared blankly at the spot where Gold Thug was standing in the air. He could not regain his senses for a long time. No wonder he said that. How can there be such a coincidence in this world? In the distance, apart from Xiong Quan, even Feng Tianwu was stunned. Heavens! What did they just see? At this moment, they could clearly see a huge dog with a golden mane and a black horn on its head standing not far away from Duan Lingtian. The black horn on the huge dog's head was shining with a gloomy halo. It exuded an extremely cold aura. As for the huge dog's golden mane, it looked like balls of golden flames were burning every time it moved. It was extremely beautiful. I can't believe the leader of the 4 Southern River Thugs, Gold Thug, is actually a demon beast. Yes, I should say he's a demon. This is my first time seeing such a dog-type demon beast. The black horn on its head that's shining with a black light, the golden mane all over its body, and its 4 paws are also shrouded in a black light. I think I know a lot about demon beasts, but I've never seen or heard of a dog-type demon beast like this before. Many people in the swift boat were discussing softly, afraid that they would disturb the black-horned golden retriever in the distance. Golden hellhound? At this moment, an exclamation resonated in the air, causing everyone to turn their heads to look at the source of the voice. Even the huge dog with a black horn on its head and a golden mane all over its body was looking at the source of the voice. A purple-clad young man stood there with a shocked expression on his face. "Master, do you recognize my true form?" The huge golden retriever spoke in human language. It was Gold Thug's voice. His voice was filled with shock and horror. "You're really a golden hellhound?" Duan Lingtian had a surprised expression on his face. "Didn't your golden hellhound clan go extinct in the Great War more than 20,000 years ago? How can your bloodline be passed down to this day? Not only that, but it's also the imperial bloodline." Gold Thug was actually a demon. Moreover, he was a demon that was cultivated from a dog-type demon beast. This fact shocked Duan Lingtian. In the beginning, Duan Lingtian found Gold Thug's true form familiar after carefully studying it for a while. He found out the answer when he searched through the Reincarnation Emperor Wu's memories of his first lifetime. Golden Hellhound. During the Reincarnation Emperor Wu's first lifetime, there were 2 great demon beast clans on Cloud Continent. They were the Golden Hellhound clan and the Berserk Mongrel Rat clan. These 2 great demon beast clans were well-known existences in the Cloud Continent at that time. Not only were they good at reproducing, but they were also very talented. They were much more talented than ordinary demon beasts. Of course, they could not be compared to demon beasts like the Jade-Eyed Heavenly Rat. The Jade-Eyed Heavenly Rat was a powerful existence that could become a demon emperor. It was extremely rare. Among the 2 clans, the Golden Hellhounds and Berserk Mongrel Rats with the purest bloodline were talented enough to break through to the Monarch stage and become powerful demon monarch powerhouses. These pure-blooded Golden Hellhounds and Berserk Mongrel Rats were called the Imperial Clan in their clans. Below the Imperial Clan was the Royal Clan. The Golden Hellhounds and Berserk Mongrel Rodents of the royal family were usually able to break through to the Void transformation stage and take human form. The best among them could even break through to the peak of the Void stage as a demon. Below them were the ordinary Golden Hellhounds and Berserk Mongrel Rats. The lower the purity of their bloodline, the weaker their abilities would be when they reached adulthood. However, they would not be weaker than a Void interpretation stage martial artist. Due to this reason, these 2 demon beast clans could be said to be 2 giants in that era. Unless one was an Emperor stage powerhouse, no one dared to provoke them. Unfortunately, these 2 demon beast clans started a great battle in a large canyon in the inner land of Cloud Continent. In the end, they almost perished together. Only a few weak Berserk Mongrel Rats were left in that battle. They quickly disappeared without a trace. All of this was recorded in the memories of Reincarnation Emperor Wu. In fact, during Reincarnation Emperor Wu's second lifetime, which was 10,000 years ago, apart from the 2 great ancient clans on Cloud Continent that had records of the Golden Hellhounds and Berserk Mongrel Rats, nobody knew of their existence anymore. The 2 great demon beast clans that once ran amok in the inner land of Cloud Continent had disappeared without a trace. "Master, you..." Not only do you recognize me as a golden hellhound, but you also recognize me as the imperial clan of the golden hellhounds? When the golden hellhound heard Duan Lingtian's words, its pair of big green eyes widened as it looked at Duan Lingtian in disbelief. In its opinion, this was simply unbelievable. Golden hellhound? At this moment, everyone in the swift boat, including Feng Tianwu and Xiong Quan, was stunned when they heard the conversation between Duan Lingtian and the golden hellhound, Gold Thug. What a domineering name. However, why haven't I heard of this dog-type demon beast before? Logically speaking, a demon beast that can break through to the monarch stage shouldn't be a nobody. Chapter 1138. On the Cloud Continent, as long as a demon beast possessed extraordinary natural talent, they were all well-known existences. Especially those powerful demon beasts with innate talent that could break through to the demon monarch stage, or even the demon emperor stage. Their names were widely spread on Cloud Continent. For example, the jade-eyed heavenly mouse. Apart from those small places in the mountains, there was almost no one who didn't know about it. Naturally, Duan Lingtian heard the whispers of the people on the swift boat. He did not find it strange. Not to mention that not many people knew of the golden hellhound now. Even in the Cloud Continent 10,000 years ago, there weren't many people who knew of the golden hellhound. According to the reincarnation Emperor Wu's memory, the golden hellhound clan was annihilated in the Great War 20,000 years ago. Currently, this golden hellhound had appeared out of nowhere. Moreover, it was the imperial family of the golden hellhound clan. Otherwise, it would be impossible for it to break through to the demon monarch stage. Moreover, it was at the 6th level demon monarch stage. Not only do I know that you're the imperial family of the golden hellhound clan, but I also know that the golden hellhound clan and the berserk mongrel rodent clan were enemies 20,000 years ago. Duan Lingtian replied nonchalantly in the face of Gold Thug's question. Berserk mongrel rodent clan. Almost as soon as Duan Lingtian's words left his mouth, Gold Thug, who had reverted to his true form, narrowed his green eyes. Waves of terrifying murderous aura emanated from his body. The murderous aura spread out, causing the expressions of the people on the swift boat to change. They felt as though a huge rock was pressing on their chests, suffocating them. However, very soon, the murderous aura on Gold Thug's body gradually faded away. His green eyes also regained their calmness. At once, the people on the swift boat heaved a sigh of relief. However, when they looked at Gold Thug, their eyes were filled with dread and fear. Duan Lingtian did not expect Gold Thug to have such a huge reaction. He could not help but frown as he asked, as far as I know, although the Berserk Mongrel Rodent clan and your Golden Hellhound clan are mortal enemies, that was more than 20,000 years ago. Back then, both of your clans had almost perished together. So many years have passed since then. You're a golden hellhound who's been separated by God knows how many generations. Why is your hatred for the berserk mongrel rodents still so great? Could it be that this hatred can be passed down after 20,000 years? Regarding this, Duan Lingtian was deeply puzzled. Master, there's something you don't know. The berserk mongrel rodent clan is similar to our golden hellhound clan. Gold Thug said, however, because we rarely reveal our identities, not many people know of our existence. I see. Duan Lingtian suddenly understood and asked curiously, are the two branches still fighting each other? Absolutely irreconcilable. Gold Thug gritted his teeth and growled. At this moment, everyone on the swift boat could hear the anger and hatred in Gold Thug's voice that came from his bones. Although it was not directed at them, they still felt a chill run down their spines. Go and collect your 4 small flying boats first, then we'll talk on the way. We'll talk about it later, Duan Lingtian said to Gold Thug. Yes. Gold Thug responded respectfully. His body shone with a dazzling golden light again, so dazzling that the people around him had to squint their eyes again. When the people opened their eyes, they saw Gold Thug, who had transformed into an old man in golden robes again. Gold Thug did not linger above the swift boat. He flew out quickly and kept the 4 small swift boats that were hovering around the Yin-Yang sect's swift boat. You know the way to the Yin-Yang sect's estate in the Inner Land, right? Duan Lingtian asked Gold Thug as he looked at him.
Yes.
Gold Thug nodded. All right, go and start the swift boat. We'll head to the Yang Sex estate. Duan Lingtian said to Gold Thug. Gold Thug responded. He went to the front of the swift boat and started it again. He turned the direction of the swift boat and let it fly on its own. Then, he returned to Duan Lingtian's side. Currently, there were a few storage rings in his hand. One of them was his own spatial ring. As for the other 5, they were the spatial rings of the 2 Yang sect elders and his 3 brothers. Duan Lingtian took them without hesitation. At the same time, he asked, with your and your 3 brothers' abilities, you must have accumulated a lot of wealth by robbing the passing swift boats in the south of Ruoshui River, right?
Yes.
Gold Thug nodded. It's all in our spatial rings. Upon hearing that, Duan Lingtian dripped his blood on the spatial rings to claim ownership. When he saw the items inside, he could not help but be shocked even though he had inherited the reincarnation Emperor Wu's 2 lifetimes of memories. Other than the high-grade origin stones that were piled up like a mountain, there was also a huge amount of materials. There were also many Grade 2 and Grade 3 spirit weapons and some pill bottles that stored pills. Regardless of whether it was the spirit weapons or the pills, Duan Lingtian was not interested in them at all. However, many of the materials were useful to Duan Lingtian. Some of them were even rarer. They were thrown aside casually as if they were being wasted. As for the high-grade origin stones that were piled up like a mountain, it was even more ridiculous. Just the high-grade origin stones in the spatial rings of Gold Thug and his 3 brothers. I'm afraid there's at least 100,000 of them. 100,000 high-grade origin stones. What kind of concept was that? Even the first-rate forces in the inner land could only take out a few 100,000 high-grade origin stones at once. This was because the first-rate forces had origin stone veins and mines that were rich in Grade 1 origin stones for them to mine. Everyone in the swift boat, other than Feng Tianwu and Stone Quan, stared at the spatial rings in Duan Lingtian's hands with a burning desire in their eyes. The wealth that was accumulated in there must be an astronomical figure. It was not difficult for them to figure it out. However, they only glanced at it before they returned to their seats obediently. They were afraid that they would offend Duan Lingtian and be thrown out of the swift boat by Duan Lingtian. It was already a blessing for them to be able to escape today. They did not dare to think about anything else. With him around, we'll definitely be able to reach the inner land smoothly. Many of them smiled in relief. Lord, thank you. The old man who warned Duan Lingtian at the Ruoshui riverside looked at Duan Lingtian and opened his mouth. He wanted to call him little brother, but when he recalled Duan Lingtian's terrifying strength, he immediately changed his words and thanked Duan Lingtian instead. Senior, you're too kind. Duan Lingtian responded with a smile. He had a good impression of this old man. You flatter me. You flatter me. The old man hurriedly waved his hand with a terrified expression on his face. Subsequently, he no longer dared to sit near Duan Lingtian. Instead, he found a seat far away and sat down. Although Duan Lingtian felt helpless, he did not say anything. This was because he knew it would be useless no matter what he said. In this cloud continent where the strong were respected, the more powerful one was, the higher one's status would be. In some people's eyes, one's status was noble and difficult to surpass. He's Xiong Quan, my butler. Soon after, Duan Lingtian introduced Xiong Quan to Gold Thug. Xiong Quan was grateful when he heard Duan Lingtian's introduction. At the same time, he nodded at Gold Thug. I hope we can work hard for young master in the future. All right. Gold Thug nodded nonchalantly. Xiong Quan was not surprised by this. If it was not for his young master, someone as powerful as Gold Thug would not even bother with him. I'll surpass you sooner or later. Xiong Quan secretly made up his mind as he stared at Gold Thug. She's Tianwu, my woman. Subsequently, Duan Lingtian looked at Feng Tianwu and paused for a moment before he said bluntly. After saying that in one breath, Duan Lingtian glanced at Tianwu worriedly. He was worried that she would be angry. Phew. When Duan Lingtian saw the faint blush on Tianwu's beautiful face, he heaved a sigh of relief. It seemed like Tianwu was not angry. At that moment, he could not help but feel pleased. Mistress. Gold Thug was casual with Xiong Quan, but he did not dare to be casual with Feng Tianwu. He bowed respectfully. She was his master's woman. All right. Feng Tianwu nodded nonchalantly at Gold Thug. Subsequently, Feng Tianwu and Xiong Quan sat down, one after another as Duan Lingtian beckoned. As for Gold Thug, he did not dare to sit down. He stood at the side with his back straight. You said that the Golden Hellhound clan's branch and the Berserk Mongrel Rodent clan's branch are irreconcilable? Duan Lingtian looked at Gold Thug and asked, It's been more than 20,000 years. Don't tell me you've never thought of making peace? With the innate talent and reproductive ability of both clans, you'll be able to recreate the glory of 20,000 years ago if you stop fighting. Through the reincarnation Emperor Wu's memory, Duan Lingtian knew how terrifying the Golden Hellhound clan and the Berserk Mongrel Rodent clan were 20,000 years ago. At that time, apart from powerhouses like Emperor Wu, even the ancient tribes did not dare to provoke them. At that time, they were existences that stood above first-rate forces. That's impossible. Gold Thug took a deep breath and said with a pained expression, Now, I'm the only one left from the Golden Hellhound clan. My parents and my clansmen were killed by the Berserk Mongrel Rodent clan's branch. Subsequently, Duan Lingtian learned many things from Gold Thug. 100 years ago, when Gold Thug was still a puppy, a powerhouse appeared in the Berserk Mongrel Rodent clan's branch. That powerhouse was more powerful than all the Golden Hellhounds in the Golden Hellhound clan's branch. That powerhouse led the Berserk Mongrel Rodent clan's branch to destroy the Golden Hellhound clan's branch. Unfortunately, that old fellow is dead. Otherwise, I'll definitely find it for revenge in the future. I'll avenge my parents and my clansmen, Gold Thug said in a deep voice. Master. Suddenly, Gold Thug seemed to have recalled something. He looked at Duan Lingtian and said, Since you know about the Golden Hellhound clan and the Berserk Mongrel Rodent clan, you should know about the Heavenly Jewel, right? Gold Thug's words entered Duan Lingtian's ears. Heavenly Jewel? Duan Lingtian frowned and began to search the reincarnation Emperor Wu's memory. Soon after, his eyes narrowed and his breathing quickened. It was as though he had discovered something extraordinary. The Heavenly Jewel? Chapter 11:39. Duan Lingtian's action shocked Xiong Quan, causing him to stand up as well. Even Feng Tianwu's beautiful face remained calm. However, there was a hint of doubt in her eyes. She wondered why Duan Lingtian was so excited. Yes, the Heavenly Jewel. Seeing how excited Duan Lingtian was, Gold Thug was certain that his master knew about the existence of the Heavenly Jewel. He might even know about its function. You're not mentioning the Heavenly Jewel for no reason, right? Do you know where I can find the Heavenly Jewel? At this moment, Duan Lingtian realized that he had lost his composure. He tried his best to suppress the excitement in his heart and asked Gold Thug. 100 years ago, that old fellow from the Berserk Mongrel Rodent clan's branch obtained the Heavenly Jewel and absorbed the Heavenly Jewel energy. That's why he was able to possess a strength that surpassed all of our Golden Hellhound clan members. Gold Thug's face darkened when he recalled the past. However, he clenched his teeth and told him everything that he knew. The Heavenly Jewel. The Heavenly Jewel's energy. When Duan Lingtian recalled the records about the Heavenly Jewel in the reincarnation Emperor Wu's memory, his emotions surged again. He could not calm down for a long time. The Heavenly Jewel was a legendary item. As its name suggested, it was a pearl. It was said that once the Heavenly Jewel was exposed to the air, it would automatically absorb the nature energy between heaven and earth and store it. Every 100 years, it would be able to store a pearl full of nature energy. There were a total of 5 types of nature energy: wind energy, fire energy, water energy, earth energy, and thunder energy. For example, if a person who comprehended the nature concept or nature profundity obtained the Heavenly Jewel and absorbed the nature energy stored in the Heavenly Jewel, he would be able to improve his concept and profundity rapidly. The speed of improvement was unimaginable to ordinary people. The Heavenly Jewel can help improve any nature profundity. My fused profundity is formed by the fusion of 5 nature profundities. It's similar to the nature energy stored in the Heavenly Jewel. It'll definitely help me improve my fuse profundity. When Duan Lingtian thought about this, his emotions surged again. But soon, Duan Lingtian seemed to have thought of something and calmed down again. Heavenly jewels. Only when they had accumulated enough nature energy would they be able to unleash their full potential. The force of nature that came from the accumulation of heavenly jewels was also known as the heavenly jewel energy. If a heavenly jewel had no more heavenly jewel energy to absorb, it was no different from a piece of trash. The heavenly jewels of the Berserk mongrel rodent clan's branch had already been filled with heavenly jewel energy since last year. After another year, when their new leader is born, they'll absorb the heavenly jewel energy in the heavenly jewel to increase their strength. Gold Thug continued, as though he could read Duan Lingtian's mind. As he spoke, a hint of unwillingness appeared in his eyes. Once he allowed the new leader of the Berserk mongrel rodent clan to absorb the heavenly jewel's energy and increase his strength, he would undoubtedly be left far behind. At that time, he would not be able to avenge his parents and clansmen. He hated it. At some point in time, Gold Thug had clenched his fists. His body was trembling, and he could not control his emotions. The reason why he agreed to be this person's dog, the reason why he didn't want to die, was not only for himself, but also to avenge the annihilation of his clan. He wanted to avenge his clan. If he died, the Golden Hellhound clan would disappear from Cloud Continent forever. You mean, the heavenly jewels in the Berserk mongrel rodent clan's branch are filled with nature energy? Duan Lingtian asked as he stared at Gold Thug. Earlier, he was worried that the heavenly jewels in the Berserk mongrel rodent clan's branch did not have much nature energy in them. That was why he lost interest in the heavenly jewels.
Yes.
Gold Thug replied confidently. How can you be so sure? Duan Lingtian asked. Ever since that old man died, the Berserk mongrel rodent clan's branch only passed down 2 Berserk mongrel rodents who possessed the Imperial family's bloodline. The new leader will be born in a year from now. Gold Thug said. As for the heavenly jewels, they were left behind by the previous leader of the Berserk mongrel rodent clan's branch. Only the Berserk mongrel rodent clan's leader can use the heavenly jewels. This is the rule he set. When Gold Thug mentioned the previous leader of the Berserk mongrel rodent clan's branch, hatred shone in his eyes. The previous leader of the Berserk mongrel rodent clan's branch was the powerhouse from the Berserk mongrel rodent clan who killed his parents. If that's the case, you want me to snatch the heavenly jewels? Duan Lingtian asked as he stared at Gold Thug again.
Yes.
Gold Thug nodded. Although I don't know what profundity you've comprehended, I can smell the aura of 5 types of nature profundity from the 5-colored profundity. I'm sure the nature energy accumulated in the heavenly jewels can help you elevate your ability, Master. Gold Thug finished his sentence in one breath. As expected of the Golden Hellhound, your nose is very sensitive. Duan Lingtian smiled. His smile was so bright that it made Gold Thug's hair stand on end. Instead of saying that you want me to snatch the heavenly jewels so that I can benefit, it's more accurate to say that you want to avenge your Golden Hellhound clan. Duan Lingtian glanced at Gold Thug, nonchalantly with an expression that said, I've seen through you. You're wise, Master. Gold Thug kneeled on the ground and said respectfully, If Master can help me avenge my Golden Hellhound clan, I'm willing to serve Master wholeheartedly for the rest of my life. I'll never betray you again. At that time, I'm willing to swear on the 9-9 heavenly retribution to prove my sincerity. Gold Thug said sincerely, Never betray you again? Sincerely? The corners of Duan Lingtian's mouth curled into a mocking smile. We killed 3 of your brothers earlier. Could it be that you don't want to avenge them? You won't be unhappy with me because of them? If that's the case, I'm afraid you'll be killed by the lightning punishment in the blink of an eye, even if you swear. As he finished speaking, Duan Lingtian's gaze was sharp like a sword. Master, although we have feelings for each other, we're not related by blood. Besides, the reason we're together is because of our common interests. From the moment we became bandits, we were prepared to lose each other. Gold Thug sighed. If we continue like this, even if we don't meet Master this time, we might be killed by someone else next time. Gold Thug felt helpless as he spoke. No matter how powerful a bandit was, he would not be able to escape death if he accidentally encountered a powerhouse. Just like this time, he became a bandit mainly because the Golden Hellhound clan's branch's base was occupied by the Berserk Mongrel Rodent clan's branch. He no longer had any cultivation resources. Therefore, he could only rely on his own strength to plunder and fight for it to elevate his cultivation base. It could be said that his current cultivation base was all due to his hard work. You're quite open-minded. Duan Lingtian glanced at Gold Thug nonchalantly and asked, since there are two imperial bloodlines in the Golden Rodent clan, they'll be our biggest opponents if we want to obtain the Heavenly Jewel. How strong are they? Duan Lingtian asked as he looked at Gold Thug with a gleam in his eyes. Their cultivation base is the same as mine. They're both at the 6th level Demon Monarch stage. If they don't go berserk, I can defeat any one of them. However, if they go berserk, I'm no match for any one of them. Gold Thug felt helpless when he reached the end of his sentence. Once the Berserk Mongrel Rodent went berserk, its combat strength would skyrocket. The purer the bloodline, the stronger the berserk power. 6th level Demon Monarch stage? Duan Lingtian's eyes gleamed as he muttered to himself, as far as I know, the Berserk Mongrel Rodent clan's imperial bloodline will gain an additional strength of at least 2,000 ancient horn dragons once they go berserk. Those with better innate talent can even gain an additional strength of 3,000 or even 4,000 ancient horn dragons. Duan Lingtian learned all of this from the Reincarnation Emperor Wu's memory. Berserk was the Berserk Mongrel Rodent's innate skill. It was similar to the variant's innate ability, but it was different because the entire clan would go berserk. However, the innate ability was one of a kind. During the Reincarnation Emperor Wu's first lifetime, he had come into contact with the Berserk Mongrel Rodent clan. In the Reincarnation Emperor Wu's impression of them, the Berserk Mongrel Rodent was a perfect example of a saying, a rat crossing the street, hated by everyone. All of this was because the Berserk Mongrel Rodent had a bad nature that originated from its bones. It might call you brother today, but it could turn hostile and even stab you in the back for benefits tomorrow. During the Reincarnation Emperor Wu's first lifetime, he had encountered a Berserk Mongrel Rodent not long after he had broken through to the Martial Monarch stage. The Reincarnation Emperor Wu had trusted it wholeheartedly, but it wanted to kill the Reincarnation Emperor Wu for benefits. Fortunately, the Reincarnation Emperor Wu reacted at the critical moment and killed it first. From that moment on, the Reincarnation Emperor Wu hated the Berserk Mongrel Rodent from the bottom of his heart. Yes, Gold Thug was not surprised that Duan Lingtian understood the Berserk Mongrel Rodent so well. When his master mentioned the Golden Hellhound clan and the Berserk Mongrel Rodent clan from 20,000 years ago, he knew that his master was not a simple person. How far is the Berserk Mongrel Rodent clan's encampment from the Yin-Yang sect's encampment? Duan Lingtian asked. Master, are you going to the Yin-Yang sect? Gold Thug asked curiously. 3 months at the latest. I must reach the Yin-Yang sect's encampment, Duan Lingtian said in a deep voice. At this moment, he could not help but think of his 2 fiancées. Kerr, little Fayer, don't do anything stupid. I'll come and save you soon. Duan Lingtian thought to himself. It'll take about 1.5 months to reach the Yin-Yang sect's encampment from here. However, if we take this swift boat to the inner land and rush to the Berserk Mongrel Rodent clan's encampment immediately, I'm afraid it'll take you more than 3 months to get back to the Yin-Yang sect's encampment after you obtain the Heavenly Jewel, Master. Gold Thug frowned when he reached the end of his sentence. More than 3 months? You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.